Director Phillips, can you hear us? Director Phillips, can you hear us? You sure? Members of the board, as we've done every year, we take this time in the fall to prepare for the City of Little Rock's 2025 budget. Today's budget hearings get us the opportunity to visit with department directors to share what they've accomplished, what they would like to do going forward in the means of the resources that we have within the City of Little Rock. So what today's goal is to go through every department, things that they accomplished and what they would like to do in the future with resources, as it's always our mission is to be chief fiscal stewards of our residents' dollars, taxpayers' dollars here within the City of Little Rock, and bring a balanced budget, as we've always done and will continue to do, is bring a balanced budget to you as well as to the residents of Little Rock. We also want you to take this time to ask questions of the department directors or myself and or the acting city manager and our executive team that as we are the ones that prepared this, eventually after going through this process, we'll get to work in preparing a balanced budget for you to review after going through this review process as we move forward with the City of Little Rock's business. And so we'll get started. Any questions before we get started? Any questions before we get started? All right. And for as protocol, let's allow the department directors to go through their material first, because they may have the opportunity to answer a question that's percolating in your mind as they complete their presentation, and then we'll take questions from that period of time. All right. We'll start first with our Fleet Services Director, Director Willie Hinton.
morning, directors. I think it'd be appropriate to start by saying congratulations to Director Adcock and Director Phillips on their re-election. So congratulations. What about oh, well. Director Capers and Director Peck too, I'm sorry. Yeah, I messed that up. I messed that up. All right. Well, I also think it would be appropriate to introduce my team. I think all of you know them. 4 of my 5 managers are here today, starting with Kenny Mulkey. He runs inventory and acquisitions. Inventory acquisitions, as you know, is Fleet's own purchasing group. So Kenny's been running that for me for 7 years, I believe.
Good morning.
And 6 years. Walter Ederly, who runs the maintenance division. Walter is the one that get all the calls when things don't work right. And then Monica Creighton, who's the manager over at Vehicle Storage and Fleet Administration. And then Donna Faison, who's our Fleet Financial Manager. Fleet has its own financial group as well. I'll talk about some of the accomplishments. I'll spend just a few minutes on that, actually. I think that most of you follow that pretty closely along with us during the course of the year. And Fleet had some accomplishments this year, although we concentrate heavily on running the day-to-day operations at Fleet, right? We concentrate heavily on that. Being an internal service fund, we provide services to all the rest of the departments in Little Rock, because we have to make sure you move around the city. Sometimes that gets to be a little difficult. But that's our daily mission, is to get people from one place to another. Whether they're picking up trash or providing safety services, that's what it is we do. I'll mention a couple of things that we are working on, at least that I'm working on, is EAM. Y'all have heard of what EAM is for a couple of years now. It's an enterprise asset management system, and it's exactly the way it sounds. It's a system to help us manage the assets of the city, starting with all of our vehicles and the people that work on them. The vehicles being the asset that we're working on. The other asset is the people that's actually working on those assets and all the material that we bring in for it. That set of modules is set to go live for me in Fleet first of the year. So there's a lot of setup in the system. What I will say, if you spend the time to set a system up right, you don't have to spend a lot of time on the back end fixing problems that you caused by putting the system in half-baked. And that one I will not do. I'll delay it every time until we can get it set up and fully implemented. So you see some target dates in there for us to get those modules done. We've been working on it for quite some time, but quite frankly, one of the recurring themes y'all are going to hear today is personnel, hiring and retaining people. And you'll hear me talk about that throughout the presentation. We also refined our fleet replacement strategy. We developed, and I think all of you've seen, the replacement strategy for public safety because of all the information that we delivered during preparation for the sales tax proposal. It's important that we stick to those timelines and those replacement strategies. And for police, we have 80 vehicles that we absolutely have to replace this year, right? So y'all will hear about that in a separate proposal because we really needed to understand what was going to happen with the sales tax before we really started talking a lot about that. But at the end of the day, they still got to be replaced. I won't spend just a whole lot of time on anything like that, but one of the things that's going to affect us heavily going forward is reducing the price of public safety equipment. The upfit that we do for all patrol cars has escalated from about $16,000 per unit to almost 30. So we're actually going to have to start doing some of those upfits in-house. So we're going to have to hire and retain the people to actually do that ourselves, because we're not going to be able to continue to pay outside vendors at that rate to install that equipment for us. Y'all are going to hear a lot more about that one as well at some point in the future. And then one of the other things we've been working on quite heavily, and y'all see this, you don't hear a lot about it, is our preparation to roll out EVs in the city. You see us putting up charging stations all over the city, at all of our at a lot of our facilities, as well as preparing the 6th Street station to have multiple level 3 chargers out there. We're working on that as we speak. We have a goal of changing X number of vehicles out by the year of over 2 EVs by the year 2030. And I think we can hit that goal, but the number one thing is to have the charging infrastructure in place before we start putting a whole bunch of vehicles in service. The other thing with EVs, we're going to have to retrofit our shops or build a shop to actually service EVs. And we'll talk a lot more about that, and probably next year as far as the shop is concerned. But you have to prepare for them before you actually start rolling out a bunch of them. I think all of you know that. And then we did some things around enhancing the take-home policy with the police, as well as with the other departments in the city. So, I'll mention a few things about 2025, what we plan to do. Again, we plan to get EAM fully implemented for fleet. You'll see a lot of positive results out of that. I won't spend any time today trying to describe to you what it will do. We'll spend some time with you after we get it up and show you how we did things in the past and how we do them now. You'll be quite impressed. The labor effort that we have at Fleet Services around anything to do systemically is crazy, and I think we have that throughout the city, and we're working on it in every department. So that rollout is important to us. We will continue to revise or assist in fleet replacement strategy. One of the things that we did along with waste management, with waste collections this year, is help them. They haven't had a replacement plan, right? Whether it was funded or not, they just haven't had one. And we helped them put together their first initial replacement plan this year. And John has asked that we do the same thing with streets. So we want to formalize that plan the way that we have formalized the plan with fire and formalized the plan with police on replacements. So we'll work a little harder at that. We talked a little bit about EVs already, and y'all probably don't know this, but some of you don't know it, some of you do. Every year, Fleet competes in the 100 best fleets with NAFA. And there's, how many thousand fleets in that thing, Walter? 30,000 fleets that we're competing against. We never finish out of the top 100. We never finish out of the top 100. That's a testament to the men and women of Fleet and to you all for supporting what we do in that organization. And I do want to thank y'all for that. But it is you should see the application for this thing. It is daunting just to fill out the application. But to be recognized in the top 100 fleets every year is something that you all should be proud of, and y'all should be proud of it as well. And then we're going to get into personnel here in just a minute. I do want to recognize that team out there, because the one thing that I have not done since I got here, and I think most of you know this, I have not added a single piece of headcount to Fleet, not a single person. And what we're going to talk about today is we're going to continue not to add. In fact, we're going to use some of the headcount we have to eliminate it so that we can actually go out and hire the appropriate position and retain them here. Retention is a big thing for us. I'll say this. We hired 4 young, promising mechanics, let's just call them that, technicians. We trained them, we paid for their CDL, and they all work for different companies now, every one of them. And it was base pay, the reason why they left. It was base pay. So we'll talk about that in just a minute, about how we plan to approach that in the budget request. So I'll stop with that on accomplishments at this point. Take any questions that either of you might have on just the accomplishments.
You got to go to personnel as well?
I've got to go over to personnel, yeah.
Keep going.
All right.
We're going to keep going and then questions later.
So then, can y'all put up the personnel model for them to see? Well, that's the organization chart. So our organization chart, it has not changed. That's the personnel model. Our organization chart has not changed in Fleet at all from last year. I will say that we have me as the director. I have an open admin position. And then I introduced the managers earlier. I don't think I need to do that again. These are the people that run Fleet. My projects and systems manager is not here. Then the personnel model. You can see that we have 20 open positions at Fleet. And you can see what they are. I don't have to go through it, but let me tell you that there are some critical positions that we absolutely have to hire. Our automotive technician 2, we have to hire those people. In fact, we're requesting in the budget request to upgrade some of those positions to, let's call it auto technician 3. Really, it's diesel technicians. We can't hire diesel technicians, and they actually work on our fire trucks and our refuse trucks. We need 8 to 10 people at the landfill. We have 5. And that is not sustainable. One of the things that happen when we can't repair things in-house, we send them outside. And you ought to see the price that we pay for that. It's much more, a lot more, twice, at least twice, what we would pay to be doing that inside. So we have to go out and hire people away from other folks to come work for us. And there's some things that we are working on to try to be able to do that. But one of them is just base pay. I will tell you this, because a lot of times people say, well, man, you got all these technicians, you can't give them all $50 an hour raise. You're right, and all of them won't get that. We don't have to do anything in our sedan shop, which we have the most technicians in. That pay level is fine. That pay level is not fine for the folks that work in the fire shop, the truck shop, and the landfill shop. So we're going to upgrade some of those positions to diesel technician positions, raise the base pay so that we can go out and hire folks, which we have to do, or we're going to continue to farm out more stuff at 2 to 3 times the amount that it would take us to repair it ourselves. And what we plan to do with that, we've identified 5 positions inside of this personnel model that we don't plan to hire so that we can actually go out and afford to hire those technicians that we need. We're already working on the job description changes that we'll need to see and the minimum qualifications that we would need to have in those positions. We'll have that to HR pretty shortly. So then that leads me to the budget request itself. Boy, that's small. Almost everything that we have requested here is to put us in the position to go out and hire people in those shops. So we are moving some salaried positions around at Fleet. They're moving Monica out of Fleet over to vehicle storage, things of that nature. But nevertheless, we're eliminating 5 positions, and they're all identified for HR so that we can afford to go out and hire those people. One of the other things that is important to be able to hire folks is environment, right? Every time we go out and try to hire people, and they come into our facilities for interviews, and I'll tell you that we do a really good job of taking care of Fleet facilities. We do. They look good. But those shops are hot boxes in the summer. So bottom line is we have to temperature control them. It doesn't have to feel like it feels in here, but it can't be 120 degrees in those shops and think you're going to keep people in them. We have not sent people home. We don't have enough people to send home, you know. So there's an environment in the shops. We requested money for that. One of the things that was shocking to me, when we hire new technicians, we actually ask them to buy their own tools. That's a $7,000 to $10,000 hit for these people. And I told Walter, man, we gotta hire some folks. We'll buy the tools. And so we're planning to, when we put new people on, we'll buy the tools ourselves, and so that we can get people in the door, right? But I'm not sure how that got started. It's something that we need to end, and we've put money in the budget to be able to end it. So when we hire new people, we're buying the tools. It is imperative that we provide anyone that we hire with the tools that they need to perform the actual duties that we're asking them to do. That is not asking too much. One of the other things that we're going to eliminate in the sedan shop and some of the other shops is the requirement for a CDL. There is no CDL requirement for driving a lightweight vehicle. Most of the vehicles that we own are lightweight vehicles. So, and then every time we spend the $4,000 or $5,000 to get a CDL, every one of those people end up going somewhere else, right? We're going to eliminate that. And then I think that explains my budget request.
All right, thank you so much, Director Campiris.
Well, thank you for recognizing us as, we appreciate that. Did I understand correctly that you are 20 people down?
We are.
So if you are 20 people down and you've got 3 different groups that you're repairing vehicles for, police, fire, and I guess.
No, we repair vehicles for everybody, every department in the city.
So what does that do to the time if Chief Hubbard sends you a vehicle? What is the time delay on getting them back out on the street?
Sometimes it can be significant. We use multiple shops around the city to do some basic things for us. Repairing a fire truck is nothing basic about it. It's a highly specialized field. And the only contractor that we have that can do can do all of the services is in Conway. So just the time delay to get it to Conway and get it back is substantial, but.
Well, then maybe I used the wrong example of fire. Tell me, have you done cost accounting on the amount of money we're spending sending them out versus if we were able to do it in the shop? There has to be some balance that if you're sending things out, it's got to be more expensive than the 20 people we can't hire. So
It is.
I mean, have y'all done that?
We have not done it the way that you're talking about, but we do know that what you just stated is true.
For practical purposes, it has to be that way. But in order to say what we need to do, I would think that you ought to be able to tell me that we're spending twice as much money and the delay time is X amount to do a truck for John Honeywell.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the number that I want. I want to know what we're spending extra by sending it out that we should be concentrating, and that's the number that we need. I mean, I find it, if you're in the top 100 fleets in the United States and we're 20 people down and we're sending work out, I'm not sure what the other 3,000 are doing, if that's what's happening. And the number that I need for you to give me is how much extra money are we spending by sending things out to do it? I mean,
We can
that's,
provide
there's, I mean, this is business 101. If you
Yeah,
went
we
to
can
the-
provide
if you
that.
went to the business school and they'd say, 20 people down, you're doing this, what do we need to do to help you to save money? Because we're gonna save money if you can do it.
That's true.
Save time and money.
That's right. Yeah, and yes, we could provide that.
Thank you.
Director Hines?
Willie, thanks. You know, we've had a lot of conversations over this. So I missed the first part of the conversation about police vehicles. So I think you're projected we're going to lease some police fleet vehicles.
We're gonna have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so because I know, gosh, I think before you became fleet manager, FOP hired a consultant to come in and look at our fleet. Most of the large fleet, in fact, the consultant looked at it and he said, you guys are the largest fleet that we've looked at that doesn't lease their vehicles and then turn them over every 100,000 miles. So is this a test to see how well it works? You know, and I already know that talking to a couple of guys that have take-home cars, they've looked at, okay, I've had my take-home car, I'm doing my PMs, I've had to do 3 PMs on it. The same time period for a car we're slip seating or hot seating, they've had to do 4 or 5, and it's already had brakes, all this. So I know that the lifespan for the cars gets pushed out when we're not running them hot like that.
Right.
So I guess that's the question. What's the plan after we do this test? Because you know I'm hearing from folks that we got 50 police cars that we hadn't been ordered yet, is what they're telling me, but that were budgeted this year. And you can tell me if I'm right or wrong on that.
So let me call your memory back to a couple of things. When I first came on board, we did a 5-year replacement plan for police. We executed that first year. We bought 60 vehicles. 40 of them were additions, 20 of them were just replacements for old staff, right? The next year, there's no money, we can't do anything. We were supposed to do 60 again that year. And I said, Bruce, we can't not do anything. So we had to get all the people that was in patrol cars out of patrol cars. So we leased unmarked police vehicles. Y'all probably recognize that. And coincidentally, we're going through the change out of that first group of cars that we leased right now. And I'll be preemptive and send y'all some figures on what it looks like to change cars out on time versus keeping them forever and then they're not worth anything and you spend all your money on maintenance. I'll send y'all some documentation around that. But then in year 3 of the 5-year replacement plan that we developed, we leased vehicles using the same thing, getting people out of the patrol cars that we had and getting folks that didn't need to be in a marked vehicle out of them, right? And that was successful. But what has not been successful is getting the patrol fleet up to where it needs to be. We're 70 cars short of that right now. And then replacing patrol cars on time. Those 2018 vehicles that are just falling apart right now, they're sitting in the shop right now, there's 30 of them offline right now because they're either at a vendor or at my shop needing some major repairs on it. They should have been replaced in 2022, right? Based off of mileage alone. What really kills a patrol car is the idling that it does. Every idle hour is 33 miles added to a vehicle. So if it says it has 150,000 miles, which most of these 18s have, plus X number of hours, and most of them is averaging, I can't remember the hours, but it is the equivalent of another 100,000 miles per vehicle. You got 200,000 miles on those vehicles, you don't expect them to keep running, because they're not. We can change the engine in it, we can change the transmission in it. You could buy a new car for what you do that with for now. So that's the whole premise. The other one is to get the patrol fleet to single use. That's the reason why we've talked about adding those additional vehicles. Then you take down the use of a car. I'll say this, there's not a single one of you or me that drive your car, get in your car, drive it home, and park it in the garage and leave it running. Go to work, get in your parking space, leave your car running. No production car made is to run 24 hours a day. That's what we're doing with cars that's in patrol. And then people call me and say, why do we have so many vehicles down? I said, turn your car on for 24 hours and leave it running every day and see what happens to it. You don't take it to the shop too often, right? So it is imperative that we either get to that single use, but right now it's just imperative to change out the patrol fleet. The 18s and the 20s, they have to go. We have over 70 of those, right? The 21s are coming right up behind it. And it's all that, the 18s, the 20s, and 21s is over 100 vehicles. We got to deal with that. So we do have a smart leasing strategy. We're not going to do an equity lease on these vehicles, so you'll see a you'll see us do some bid for the lease so that we can change the way that equity lease works. I want to do some of that stuff, but it'll be well defined so that we can move forward with leasing vehicles. That's the only option we have, because I don't think you have $6 million to give me this year to go replace all that stuff. So we're going to have to lease it.
Director Wyatt?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for your presentation today. I know you put a lot of work and manpower in it. And I wanted to ask about, this is on page 202, and it's objective measures of progress. And I think all of these numbers are dealing with preventative maintenance. So can you explain to me what these numbers represent? 202. Back, right, nope, right there. Objective measures of progress. So you got preventative work orders scheduled 13, 16. I'm looking at the 2024 schedule. So what is that really saying? Are we saying that we've got 1,316 work orders? And we had 1,231 opened and closed. And work orders closed on and before the due date for 81% measure. So what are we really saying with that one and then the one below it?
So what we're saying with the work orders open and closed, we opened, and that's for preventative maintenance work orders. So
I think this is August numbers, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, August, okay.
Right. So for PMs, for preventative maintenance,
Right.
we have X number of those orders that's open every year. So year to date, for preventative work orders, and preventative maintenance is stuff that you do on a regular basis, on a mileage meter or hour meter or time-based meter to say, at this point, you're going to do an APM, which is change the oil filter and all that stuff, right? And you do that all the time. So We opened 1,316 of those, and we closed,
1,070?
yes, ma'am.
No,
Yes, ma'am.
no, you closed 12/31. But you did
Yeah, we closed
1,070 on or before the due date.
Ah, that's much better.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. We closed, 1,070 on or before the due date. So we get vehicles in for preventative maintenance, and you find other things on the vehicle that has to be fixed before you can let it go back out, right?
Okay.
So they'll open a repair order and keep that vehicle until they can actually get it out on time. But the measure then is how many of those did we get out in the time frame allowed to get that particular type PM done.
So what would be the time frame? You're 81% in 2024, and it looks like you're trying to improve that measurement to 90% in 2025. How many hours, what's your goal at 81%? How many hours?
What was our goal at 81%?
Yeah, how many hours is that?
I can't tell you exactly what the number of hours were.
Okay. And I would have the same questions about the next items.
So,
And really this is what I'm getting to. I hear a lot about vehicles that are not operating because we're doing preventive maintenance on them. So I'm trying to understand, is that 80%, is that a good number, and is 90% a good number, or is there a way to improve upon that so we turn around and get the vehicles back? I know we talked about fire trucks and we talked about some other vehicles, but is that really a good number?
so I think I know where you're headed. So 81% is awful.
Awful?
It is awful.
Okay,
I'll just tell you that.
okay,
But I think what you are actually referring to more than anything else, because you hear it all the time,
yeah,
that, especially from refuse, right? There's a difference between preventative maintenance, which is not the reason why these trucks are down, right?
Okay.
And routine maintenance.
okay,
Routine maintenance is done by the departments, not by fleet, right? The departments. We do preventative maintenance to stop certain things from happening on a regular schedule, right? Your daily things that you have to do is done by the departments, and some of them do it really, really well. Some of them don't do it at all, which means when we get it in for the preventative maintenance, then we find those other things that should not be going wrong at all. I'll just tell you, we should never change a packer inside of a refuse truck. We should never change them. We change them all the time. We don't grease them. We don't wash them. Just a fact. So when you get it in for preventative maintenance, you're going to find repair work that you got to do. That's what drives this to 81%. That's what drives it down to 81%. Preventative maintenance and repair maintenance should be at a 95% efficiency level. You'll find that in almost every shop that you go to. You can't get there, though, if you don't do the basic stuff first. You have to do that, or you're going to spend an inordinate amount of time on PMs in repairs. We have way more repairs than we ought to have. And
these numbers are a combination of that.
but these are a combination of repair and
Right,
PM
so-
and lack of preventative maintenance. Routine maintenance.
Okay, well, I asked that question because I hear it, I
Yeah,
hear
yes,
the
you do.
people talking about, well, it's in the shop for preventive maintenance, okay? And, I don't know when I'm gonna get it out, blah, blah, blah. So if 81% is awful, as you said, and some of the issues are that the departments are not doing routine maintenance, how do you get that to 90%?
By getting those people to do that. And we're actively working at that.
Okay,
Director, we know for a fact that you can't, if you want something different to happen, you can't keep doing the same thing, right? We have all those refuse trucks, that has to be changed out simply because the routines weren't done. We can't let that happen going forward. So what I've said to Walter, and I shouldn't have had to say this, but what I've said to Walter is, these trucks that we're buying today, I want to run them for the life of the truck, which means when folks are not doing those things, if we're not going to do it for them, then we got to call it out and make sure it happens. We're washing all the trucks over at Fleet right now. We shouldn't be washing those trucks. We're making sure that either we have automatic greasing bought on the truck. A lot of cities won't even do that because they want their people looking at the truck. We put an automatic greasing on the truck so that we can alleviate some of the need for operations to have their people to do the routine pre-trip and post-trip checklist and grease their equipment. We shouldn't be doing that, but that's what we're doing.
So I wasn't aware that we had groups that were responsible for routine maintenance. I thought you did everything. So does that mean that every department's got a staff that does routine
They don't
maintenance?
have staff. The operator of the vehicle has to do that stuff. Those sidearms that go out on a refuse truck,
Yeah.
they do over 1,000 tips a day. Every one of them has to be greased multiple times a day. They're not greased at all.
Multiple times a day?
Multiple times. Should be greased before they go out or after they come in, and when they come in to dump, right? They go to the landfill dump, they should grease that arm.
And do we have
Hold on a second.
do we have the equipment for them to be able to do it at the landfill? I mean, are we set up to do that, or is that an issue?
It's a simple grease gun, and we're buying them. We bought them, put them in the truck.
Okay.
We're giving them to them. And Grant, thank God, has finally said to him, you're going to grease those trucks. Now, I don't think we grease them often enough, but at least we're getting started. We're not going to let the ones we just bought get into that condition. I'll call him every day. I'll call John every day. We're not going to let that happen.
Okay.
Because we should not be changing arms. We should not be changing packers. We should not be changing cylinders and bearings on those trucks. Any of them. We do it all the time. That's that expensive repair maintenance that you get into. A Packer replacement costs $26,000. We shouldn't have to replace that. So that's just a fact.
Okay, all right, well, that's all I had on that. I just would continue to hear they're in, they're in preventative maintenance. They're in the shop for
What they
preventative
should be
maintenance, so-
saying is in shop for repair maintenance, not preventative, repair.
But you do preventative maintenance.
And that's what we're there for. We do the preventative maintenance
Yeah.
and the repair maintenance. My point being, we should not have a hell of a whole lot of repair maintenance. That's the reason why you do the preventative. But you ain't gonna get there without doing the routine.
So is the 90%, you said 81 was awful, where's 90%?
It's okay.
It's okay.
95% is where we should be.
We should be at 95%.
We should be at 95%.
Okay,
And if, I'll stay around here until I can see that goal accomplished, 95%.
okay. And there was one other deal, and it's my page number 205. It's a budget request for software license of $80,000.
Mhm.
And at the bottom, it says purchase of STR tracking software. $80,000. I'm wondering if that's from a different sheet or if that
That should be with planning. It's
goes
just in the
along
wrong,
with that.
it's just in the wrong spot. It should be with planning.
I'm sorry?
It should be with planning.
Okay, well, it's got manager's salary and benefits from fleet services to vehicle storage on there, so that
Which
kinda-
page is that, Director?
Well, it's my 205
Yeah, it's an error.
or 217. Apparently, there's changes from the original book to now, so,
I think some things were out of place, I think,
Okay.
and I think they actually
maybe
did
that
change
was
that.
it, maybe that was it. But it's got,
I think we did have something in there for additional EAM subscriptions for fleet, but that's not it.
yeah, but it's got something at the side. It says manager salary and benefits from fleet services to vehicle storage. and then it shows the cost is 80,000, and at the bottom of it, it says purchase of STR tracking software.
Is that yours, Monica?
No, this one's planning.
the-
It's the way the application was, they copied over, so it's just inadvertently in there. So it shouldn't be in there.
Okay, so this, just mark this out totally, it's not a fleet.
Yeah, that side stuff
Okay.
is the same that's on the
Should
prior
it go
page.
into planning?
It should be in planning, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
right.
but I did say earlier that we're moving Monica's salary out of fleet services into vehicle storage, so that,
Okay.
but
Well,
it's
that
different,
kinda-
that's a different figure than what
Yeah, that
what
threw
I
me
had.
off by STR tracking, because I thought that was short-term rental. It may be another acronym. Oh, it's already there? Okay. That's okay. That's okay. Just trying to understand. Oh, it's got the same language over here on page 204, or whatever that number is for your allocations for your budget. Okay, that was it. Thank you for clarification on the PMs,
Yes, ma'am.
because I hear that often.
I think there's probably going to be an order for me to get something out of what we actually intend for PMs to do, what routine maintenance should do and what repair maintenance
Yeah,
means.
because I'm
Because
looking,
those other two avoid a whole lot of repair maintenance.
because, I'm looking for things to happen, and, I'm hearing stuff's in PM, so,
And that is just, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to do a PM.
yeah.
It takes a whole lot of time when you get
Do
something in
repairs.
for PM, and then you got to do repairs because something else is not right with the vehicle. That happens, that does happen.
Okay, I had one more question if I got time to ask. This has to do with 2024 accomplishments, and we're talking about continue VSF facility and building safety improvements. And it says that there's a plan to move forward with facility enhancements, start the process of securing J.E. Davis facility, and the planning process will happen in fourth quarter, and move will take place in first quarter. So it sounds like we're moving vehicle storage to J.E.
So,
Davis, and is that still,
so what me and John and Bruce decided to do 2 years ago, and we haven't had time to do it, or people to manage this project. We are two things. We need to secure that facility, J.E. Davis, period, for a number of reasons. Little Rock Police Department impounds folks' vehicles. And every once in a while, one of those folks get a little belligerent. And they'll come over through the fleet area looking for their vehicles. And they're not very nice about it, right? And every once in a while, they really get belligerent, right? Now, sometimes they run into me, and my physical size get folks not to settle down a little bit. Everybody out there ain't this big, or have a voice like mine and say, hey, look, just settle down. And let's see, because we didn't take your vehicle, the police did. So, but even when they come over to vehicle storage, those folks get a little hot sometimes. The other thing, we have a lot of equipment at Fleet. John has all of his street equipment parked there, stored there. People can come onto that site and have come onto that site while we're there and take things away from us, drive our vehicles out, right? Steal lawnmowers. While we are there, you can imagine what they can do at night when ain't nobody there besides one person, right? Over at vehicle storage. So what we decided to do was, and we need more space at J.E. Davis for things like upfitting. We don't have space for upfitting. So we have a building services shop, and we have building services managers over in where Fleet is. So what we talked about doing was moving building services offices to fire training and moving their shop to fire training, right? And Fleet would take, Monica's area would get the office area that's directly up front so that she could expand her people into it. And we would take the shop and start doing minor upfits at J.E. Davis, right? As well as secure the facility. We would lock the gate that folks are coming through now. Everybody would enter from Jameson Street, right? They would park in the parking lot that's reserved for all of our folks. Because right now, our people park in that parking lot, they park around Fleet, and they park around John's facility. God knows what could be walking out of the facility. That's what we're talking about. And then Monica has people on staff 24/7 at vehicle storage. We're going to turn those people into security guards with the monitoring equipment from all those cameras that we're putting in right now to see what's going on around that entire facility. And if somebody's inside of John's area taking stuff off of his vehicles, if somebody come in and take stuff off of one of the fleet vehicles that's sitting over there, we'll see it. Because we got somebody there 24/7 right now. All we're saying is let's turn them into security guards with the monitoring equipment so that they can see what's going on at Fleet and then call the police, their appropriate people. But you got to make those moves before you can do all of that.
Yeah, it looks like, it's gonna happen in 2025.
That's mine and John's plan. He asks me quite often, where are we at on that? Because he'll have something show up missing, and we can't figure out why it's missing. So we intend to get out ahead of that by actually watching what's going on at the facility.
Sounds like that's a good plan. In regards to releasing vehicles, you said the department objective is 80% of the vehicles within 45 days of impoundment. And through August of 2024, you're 82%, but your budget for 2025 is to go to 80%. So why are we going from 82% to 80%?
Oh, you're talking about at vehicle storage.
Yeah, vehicle storage, I'm sorry. I thought that's not what we're talking about.
No, I think that a lot of the times, the reason why we can't get vehicles back to the owner is because of things that the owner's not doing, and she's figuring that in that percentage, right? And I'm not sure why we moved it down from 80 to 82.
Well, you said your objective was 80%, but today in 2023, you were 82%. So I'm just wondering why. It seems like that would be a worser performance.
Well, but most of what she's doing with that measure is, hey, look, this is the number that we get back to the folks on time. And she set a goal of 80%. But most of that 20% is not things that she can control to get it back to the owner. Those are things that they actually have to do, or the police got to do something. And we can impact some of that by antagonizing them about getting that thing done. But until they do, we can't improve that percentage.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I'll be quick.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, and thank you to your team. This has been very helpful. 2 quick questions, and you don't have to answer them. You can send the answers to me.
Okay.
This summer and earlier in the fall, when we had mandatory overtime to pick up trash and things like that, my first question is, did we have mandatory overtime, and what were the total dollars that we've spent in mandatory overtime this
For Fleet?
year? And that is kind of Director Compuris's question kind of triggered that. Again, you can send it to us.
Yes, ma'am.
And second,
And I'll answer that, just so keep it quick, and he'll send it to you. They're still on mandatory overtime but it's scaled down a bit, and because we've gotten those 5 vehicles, and we've committed that they'll come off of it once the other 2 vehicles come in. So we don't have that exact. We can get you a rough number.
just
Yeah.
year to date, and when we're thinking about like those costs of sending it out that you said are 2 to 3 times as much, that's just helpful as we
will.
think about what to
Yeah,
do
I agree.
to help you all. And the
So,
second thing-
so
Just email her, because we got to stay on track.
I will, but I'll just say, every time John goes on overtime, we mirror it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we mirror that department.
Second thing, quickly, again, you can send it. I believe you said that some departments do the preventive well and others don't. Could you send us that, in your opinion?
Yes, ma'am, I can do that.
Thank you. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you.
That shouldn't take us long to do. So I'll have it for you next week.
Director Peck?
Vice Mayor Webb asked my questions. But Willie, thank you. This has been very educational. And it's kind of like kids who won't take care of their toys and some of my employees who abuse my kitchen equipment. Just do it.
All
I
I'll say-
know, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but it just seems like if you're driving it, if you're using it day to day.
Take care of it.
Take care of it.
That's
That's
the name of the
just
game.
common sense.
Right. Yes, ma'am, I totally agree.
Director Lewis? Director Hines? We'll come back. All right, we will now, thank you, Willie.
All right.
We'll now go to Public Works. And department directors, instead of going through your accomplishments to kind of keep it streamlined, board members have seen your accomplishments for the last week. They've read it. If they want to ask you about it at the end, they'll ask you about it. So I would just go straight into your requests and personnel, just to get us back on schedule. Hold on, you can go get started. So, John, if you'll just go straight into budget requests and/or personnel, whichever one you feel most comfortable with.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So I'm sure all of y'all are aware, Public Works has 3 separate budgets. And I think I've got this in the right order. It's the first one y'all have, Building Services. Okay, so Building Services is our general fund budget. As y'all know, that's the group that maintains the city's buildings. And our requests that we have for them this year, or for 2025, basically include increasing some of the line items that we use for doing that maintenance, specifically just general building maintenance. We have heating and air conditioning systems maintenance, and then a fleet replacement request. So we're just asking for those numbers to be increased to help offset the obvious increased costs that everyone has when it comes to maintaining those systems within our buildings. We are not asking for any increases in personnel for building services. Do you want to do each budget question, or do you want to go through all of it and then come back? Okay. So our next one we're going to talk about is solid waste. Get over to our requests. We have, it's easier for me to look at it on this other sheet. Excuse me for just a second. There we go. Let me get these out too. All right. So in solid waste, our requests include routing software. I know y'all have probably heard us talk about that previously. It's something we've been working with different vendors across the country to decide which one we think is going to be the best fit for us. We'd like to implement the purchase and installation of routing software in our trucks that'll allow us to not only be more efficient with how we have the trucks do their routes, but it also gives us much better up-to-date, real-time information about how they're doing those collections if there's misses. It'll allow us to better monitor how we're doing that operation on a daily basis. Our next request, and that's a total of $500,000 the first year. That includes software purchase, and then also an ongoing licensing agreement that you have to have with that software, which would be a continuing expense going forward to maintain that license for that software. So a total of $500,000 for 25. Our next request, and I think Willie may have touched on it a little bit, is vehicle replacement program. That is something that Fleet is helping put together an actual plan of how we're going to start turning over our fleet on a regular basis, and how that cost is going to be included into our annual budget. Right now, it's projected to be $5 million a year. We understand that that's not in our budget for next year. However, we want to make you aware of the costs to be able to have our fleet turn over how it should be turning over for this type of operation going forward. Our next line item is for our landfill vehicle replacement. That's $2 million for a replacement plan on an annual basis. And that includes bulldozers, very large dump trucks, grinders, all the equipment that's used specifically on the landfill. It doesn't leave the landfill site. It's not doing any of the collection side of things. It's equipment that we use to operate the landfill that we own. Once again, that's money that is outside of the current budget that we have every year. And I'll get to how we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then the third thing we have on here is the actual landfill itself. As y'all know, that's an ever-expanding unit that we have to continually build new cells. As we fill our existing cells up, we have to be planning for the future to build new cells. Our projected costs to do our next cell, which is going to be cell 7, and then including purchasing some property. So we're talking design of that, land acquisition, and then construction. We're at about $8.5 million to do that total plan. That's not a 2025 cost, but we need to start thinking about how we're going to accrue that money so we have it in place when it comes time to actually do that. We need to start doing the planning for design and the other parts of that, so when it comes to actually build it, we're ready to go when we need it. Some of that depends on how much refuse we have coming in and out of the landfill every year, as how quickly those fill up. So we have estimates how long it'll take, but obviously that's all subject to how much usage we have, not only by our residential customers, but also outside customers that choose to deposit their solid waste in our landfill. We do not currently have any requests for additional labor at this time. So right now we feel like we have enough staff allocated. It's the question of making sure we can keep all those positions filled all the time. And that comes down to market demand, competition for people that are CDL drivers. So that's where we're continuously filling those positions as rapidly as we can, but we also have people that choose to leave with some of that as well. So one of the things that's not on here that we're working on right now is a potential rate study. Obviously, we've got to develop revenue. The solid waste fund is only funded by rates that our customers pay. So in order to pay for these types of needs for our division in solid waste, we need to look at what our rates and how we generate the revenue to be able to do that. So in 2025, we're going to be working with consultants to come up with a new plan for what those rates should be to cover the costs of what these are. And then obviously we're going to bring that to y'all to show you what we think it'll be to do that. So that's another thing that's coming in 25, but it's not necessarily listed in this budget. Street fund. So in the street fund, we have, most of these are not necessarily new asks. They are items that we've had in our budget ongoing. Most of it's a request to continue the funding of those. Our first is our fleet replacement. That includes quite a different array of vehicles, from dump trucks to mowers to crew trucks to all kinds of different things. We have an itemized list if anybody would like to see that. That's $2.9 million is what we've proposed for next year. We have our reentry sidewalk replacement and right-of-way maintenance programs. We've had those in place and funded for a considerable amount of time. However, the funding that existed for those is starting to run out. It was paid by the sales tax. So we need to decide, do we want to continue to budget that out of the street fund to continue those programs? They've been, I think, very successful programs for the city. Not only do we have the reentry aspect of it, we're providing training and jobs for people that are coming back into society from being incarcerated. It's also providing improvements to sidewalks across the city, as well as helping us maintain our streets to look the way we want them to look. So we feel like that's an important item to continue funding in the budget. Our next one is to continue funding street and drainage maintenance. This is just an increase in that line item. We're starting to see where the funds that we've had line item dedicated to certain things are not covering the expenses that we have for the year. So we just want to bump those line item amounts up for that particular fund. And that's just street maintenance. That's the guys that are going out and picking up litter, doing pothole repair, all that kind of stuff. We just want to bump those numbers up to cover our costs. We also have, and we started this probably in the last year and a half, we have, if y'all remember, we have contracts for mowing and maintaining right-of-ways, where our crews still do that work, but the demand and the amount that we had to do, we weren't able to cover internally with our own crews. So we've gone to contractors outside to help us keep that done on a timely manner. So this would be a continuation of funding for those contracts for another year. And then our last one is an increase in the funding for, and that was $740,000 is what we're talking about for those two contracts. Our last one is for the street light costs. The street fund pays for all of our street lights, electricity, the cost of that. Through our tariff rate, we are anticipating an increase in those costs. And this would just be an increase in that budget line item to continue to pay that bill when we get it every month. We're seeing it go, we anticipate it to be about $3.3 million this next year. So that's a large expense that we take care of through the street fund. And employment-wise, I don't think we had any changes in employee numbers for street fund either. So at this point, I'm sure y'all probably have lots of questions, so it'd probably be easier for me to answer questions than try to anticipate what y'all want to talk about.
Director Hines?
Thanks, John. Going back to solid waste. When was the last time we took a rate increase on our solid waste collection fee?
It was 2018 is the last time we did that.
Okay. And what was the projection from those rates, how long that rate increase would last?
We projected it to be 10 years.
Okay.
But that was prior to pandemic and some other things that occurred that have really, really changed our operating costs that were not anticipated at all. One of the big things is we took our CDL drivers, and in order to be competitive in the market, we made their starting base pay for person that operator one to $18 an hour. Prior to that time, it was about $13.5 an hour. So that was an immediate jump in cost that was not anticipated in that rate study. And then obviously the cost of everything else from garbage trucks to equipment to everything else have increased dramatically. So that's why we feel like that rate study is not going to last us that 10 years.
Okay. So in that 2018 rate increase, was there I remember when we did this, and I swore I thought we had fleet replacement budgeted in that.
I think there was an amount in there that was around $1 million a year is what we put in there, if I can remember. But when we start to have an increased cost, we have to decide, are we going to pay employees? Are we going to do fleet replacement? So we have to decide how we're going to allocate that funding as we've went through these years where costs have gone up exponentially.
Okay. And I guess the question is, why are we waiting till this year to go out for this rate study Because I can tell you the issues we had and having to dip into general revenue funds to replace trash equipment from an enterprise fund, I seriously question why we haven't been made aware of this and the need for these cost outrunning. And, you know, if you guys are getting into a situation where in 2018, you projected out 10 years, but it's obvious that y'all have been aware for some time, and I don't know how long, but, you know, the first things we start hearing is trash isn't getting collected. I'm very concerned about the operations at our solid waste.
Okay.
Mainly from the maintenance issues we're having. So the other question I had is, did we not approve a truck wash for the dump?
It is being constructed right now.
Okay, so we're gonna check one of those issues off the box.
Yes, sir. It's about $1.5 million that are
Right, so
being
we've
spent.
approved that and it's under construction. Okay.
Right now, it's currently being
right.
built.
You know, I fully understand what Willie's saying, having operated a trucking company for 10 years of my career. I know what it takes to operate a diesel commercial vehicle. I know what the drivers are required, the operators and drivers are required to do. And my question to you is, how are you gonna hold your frontline and the managers of your frontline employees accountable for doing their pre-trip maintenance? I know Director Webb has been out to Waste Management, and maybe we need to go get some lessons from the private sector, but I would advise that we get this rate study done before the end. We can't wait till 2025.
We're actually working on the RFQ right now to get it advertised, to have people submit their qualifications so we can select
And-
someone.
Well,
Director-
what I would advise is we go sole source on this. We know who the rate study folks are, because our bid process is slowing everything in the city down. And it's taking way too long to get things done, especially when we're in an emergency situation. And that's why we're discussing. And so how much, and I guess the question is, of this, these budget requests are all contained within enterprise. So there should not be any impacts on general fund revenue.
Correct, that's correct.
Okay, all right. That's my first deal. And I guess what I'm trying to tell you is, I've seen it throughout the city, and then going on to my next question on our street fund. The biggest one, when you talk about going out and renewing these other contracts for right-of-way maintenance and that kind of stuff, who's responsible in your department for checking on that quality of that contractor work and making sure they're meeting the deliverables of those contracts?
That is in our operations division. So
Okay.
our operations
There's
manager
a
and his
problem there.
staff.
I'm gonna tell you, there's a problem there. Because, and it's been confirmed by your staff, that our contractors are not meeting the deliverables of the contracts we're paying for, which means that somebody is not doing their job on our end to inspect their work. It's all up and down Chenal Parkway, it's on Canis, it's on areas outside my ward that I see, because I drive all over the city. And, you know, I'm all for outsourcing when it makes sense and we can do it, but we have a lack of accountability going on throughout the department right now. And before we approve any budgets, I really want to know what the plan is to hold folks accountable.
Okay.
Because I don't have any faith right now that any of this is going to get done. And I've really this has been a burr in my saddle, I think, Grant, and you know. I've been trying to figure out that we've had issues with our own right-of-way crews and our contractors. And it goes down to frontline managers. Because I know our employees, I've met our frontline, I've had lunch with them. I said, they will do anything you ask them to do. But there is a lack of a standard of job performance from our frontline managers that's not getting translated. And so that goes up the organization. At some point, somebody's got to be held accountable, because I don't see any improvements. And I've had to get on my soapbox and be really direct with Grant about why is this happening? And he's been real honest with me. Some things we didn't know about, obviously we weren't managing from contractors. So, you know, I am not happy to say the least, but, you know, I think we've identified, but I'm concerned. And I don't know whether you've been told not to bring it to us on the solid waste fee because we've been trying to get a sales tax done, but this is sat too long and now we're in an emergency situation.
And Director Hines, I can answer that question if you'll recall first, and I want to make certain every city board director hears me. Many times when we get into this meeting, we often forget certain things. And so I just want to remind the city board that in the middle of the pandemic, we came before you and shared there was going to probably be a need to do a rate study. We had a discussion about that in 2020 and 21. There was not an appetite to do the rate study. We're back before you. We even had this conversation several months ago when we, as you shared, Director Hines, utilized some general revenue surplus, some mini surplus to get the 7 vehicles that we got. We shared that then. That's the reason why at that particular meeting that even Vice Mayor Webb was there, we shared that we need a rate study, particularly if the sales tax didn't pass. And at that point, I shared with you all that we'll go ahead and start the process, but we did discuss this in 2020 and 21. There was not an appetite. And so I just want to make sure it's clear. We definitely hear you, Director Hines. You are correct. We need to do that as far as the sole source. There are many people who do rate studies. We can't do a sole source based off of what legal has told us. We would love to do a sole source, but our city attorney has shared that that's not possible. We got to go through this process, just like we did. I wasn't here at that time, just like it was done in 2018. We can't do a sole source. I would love to do a sole source. I agree with you, but we got to go through that process.
And I will say that's why we're doing RFQs. So it's a professional service qualifications. We select someone, negotiate a contract, and go. There's not multi-step process that we go through like a request for proposals or something like that, or an actual bid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mayor.
Director Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. On the street fund, I think Director Hines sort of talked about this. On our third-party contracts, do you have any idea about,
You took yourself off. Yeah, just push it again. Yeah, hold it. Yeah, there you go. You got it.
I'm sorry about that. Do you know how many requests, are in 311 for ditch cutting? I mean, I get a lot of phone calls about this. Do you have any idea what?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's probably, I think, the report I got this morning, it's probably, depending on what type of, if you're talking about a large ditch that requires heavy equipment for us to go in and work in, so we're talking backhoes, track hose, all that scale of equipment.
All of it, yeah.
Well, but it's sort of two different things.
Okay.
Those requests are probably anywhere from 6 to 8 months behind. If you requested it today, it would be about 6 or 8 months before we get to it. The tornado basically caused our heavy equipment crews, in their response to cleaning up all the drainage areas that were impacted by the tornado, it took them almost a year to get all of those areas rehabilitated. Those areas were not eligible under FEMA to have our contractor that did all the debris removal to go in and work in. So we took that upon ourselves to do all that work internally with our own crews. So what does that mean? That means those crews worked on that for that long period of time while that list of other locations that weren't impacted by the storm continued to put in their requests. So we've been working as fast as we can to get those off the list. Now, those are the big type work. The smaller stuff, I don't know the time frame right now off the top of my head. It's probably at least a month or so, if not a little bit longer, before if you put in a request for like a small ditch cleaning, for us to get to that.
So with this request, the 740,000, that's for the small stuff?
No, sir. The 740,000 is for maintaining right-of-ways along streets. So you've got areas that, say it's vacant property that's along a road that where the grass and everything and vegetation grows up along the edge of the road, and that property owner, it's undeveloped, so they don't maintain any of it. That's where we go out and maintain that right-of-way along the edge of the road and keep it cut back. Like the center median on Chenal, for instance, or other areas along, I'm trying to think of another example off the top of my head.
I mean,
Otter Creek or one of those type larger roads.
that's fine. I just want to make sure that, excuse me, when I get phone calls about people who said, look, I made a request to 311, doesn't seem like it's being addressed, I need to be able to tell them, could be a month, is what we're looking at.
Yeah, and they should get a response, when they do that 311 request, they should get a time frame from the system at that point of what it's anticipating.
Who follows up on that? Who knows that they get that follow-up?
Well, I mean, 311 somewhat depends on, did they call it in? Did they do it through the mobile app? Did they use their computer? It depends on how they, and what information they provide as to what information they get back. If someone does a phone call and only leaves a phone number or leaves an email, they're going to get way more information from the city as far as status. But if it's anonymous or something like that, we can't respond back to someone that doesn't provide us any contact information.
Again, so as far as the budget is concerned, which obviously what we're talking about today, I want to make sure that in your request that it's going to improve. I mean, if you can get the type of money you need to make improvements on the time to get this done, because again, these are phone calls that I get mostly. And do you have enough money to cut this time down from a month to, I mean, what's acceptable?
Well, what's acceptable to me may not be acceptable to someone else. So,
Can you talk about your staffing levels that you have right now for the ditch maintenance?
yes, I mean, but part of the question is, what do we want to prioritize? With our current funding that we have, I don't know, and it's all generated by the street fund through those revenue sources. If we want to increase what we're doing for drainage maintenance, we need to stop doing something else and prioritize that.
And you have to stop because you don't have enough people.
Enough people and funds. Because we have the street fund is its own budget, so we only have a certain amount of money. So what gets prioritized as the most important thing to do is what we're gonna have to put those resources toward.
Yeah, to me, that's sort of like basic services, and that's what people want. Again, I get more phone calls about that. I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
And I think it also comes down to what is, when people do a ditch maintenance request, the city's responsibility is to maintain that area for drainage to flow through it. It is not to keep it landscaped. It is not to keep it cut to a desired level that they want it to look like their lawn that's adjacent to it. So I think some of the expectations of what people want are not always what the city can provide either.
Okay. Well, thanks. I mean, again,
And I think you're totally right, Director Miller. As a great example, there are folks in my neighborhood who have a ditch, and they fully expect the city to come to it. And many times I'll get a phone call, just like you all get a phone call. And I remember when I first got in the office, and Director Honeywell said, "Well, Mayor, we'll get out there. We got hundreds of requests for all these areas that you're talking about to have these ditch areas. But that's their property, and that's not the city. But we do it anyway. We got to take a strong look on certain things. So are we going to stop? No, we're not going to stop. It's just the question is, because they do it now, but how many people on that list right now?
Probably it's hundreds.
And that's all in a list. And people, they go out, they got to work a list and they try to get out to it.
And we do it once and we're gonna do it forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I mean, did we just do it? And they probably already entered a request to have us do it again.
And members of the board, this has been going on for decades, where the city goes onto private property and cleans a ditch, and our residents expect that it is cut almost to, they know it's not gonna be to the T like their lawn, but they expect it. And we are going onto private property to do that. I think we all know that.
It has an easement
Yeah.
that's dedicated on private property that allows us access. It doesn't require us, it doesn't mandate that we have to. It allows us access to go in and maintain that area for the purpose of drainage, for water to flow through that location. It doesn't mean we have to keep the water flowing through that location. It just gives us access and the right to enter that property within that easement for the purpose of drainage.
Director Miller?
Well, I'll just say this and I'll yield for other directors to ask questions, but man, if we hadn't had some type of education campaign to try to address some of that, I think we need to seriously take a look at that. These are phone calls I get, and it's tough for me sometimes to try to explain it. People think that's what the city ought to be doing. I don't know what to do about it. I mean, I hear you, I look at these numbers, but man, if I could get some help with maybe some type of education, almost like the litter campaign, Director Peck, that we're trying to do, there's more education about that, because that is an issue with me with these phone calls.
And Director Miller, I don't think there's any problem with doing the education campaign, but what I would tell you, and I think every member of this city board, because it's been going on for years, residents expect when they call that we come. I think they've grown accustomed to now. They know it's not going to happen every month. As Director Lewis just said, we came out there, and what do? They put another 3-1 question in because they know it's going to come back again in a year. I think we have made the commitment through the precedent that we got to continue to do it, but we also got to set the expectation that we'll continue to do it with the resources that we have and the timing that we have with the resources that we have. I want to be very clear, because I know 20,000 residents are going to go 3-1, no matter this meeting happens today or not, and expect that to happen. And we're going to continue to do it. We can educate them that it's not their responsibility, but they're still going to put a 3-1 request in to get it done. My neighbors do it. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, literally, I got neighbors. My house, you go to the back of my lawn. It is a huge ditch in Southwest Little Rock off of McDaniel Drive and Ward 7. And my neighbors, and they probably expected that it would be done quicker because I'm in office. And I can tell you, it doesn't get done any quicker because I'm in office. So it's going to happen. We're going to keep doing it. The education campaign, they expect it to be done. It's going to be done. And so, Director Adcock.
Same subject. You said there's only one funding for cleaning ditches. Who said that? Can we not say that we're going to use 2 funding sources? Or can we not find another funding source? Because like the other directors, this is a big problem citywide. And the people are irate when you tell them it's going to be 6 months or 8 months to get it done. We've got ditches that has not been cleaned out, and now there's trees growing in the ditches. And that is another problem. The trees are not solid in a ditch because of the water, and we're seeing the trees starting to fall. And now they're wanting us to clean up the trees in the ditches. So you said there's one funding source. Why is there only one?
So Public Works operates out of the street fund for our street and drainage maintenance. The street fund is generated by property tax turnback, gas turnback funds. That is the only funding that Public Works has within that budget. If the board made the decision that they wanted to take general fund money and dedicate general fund money towards ditch maintenance, we'd be more than happy to take that funding and try to increase what we can do.
Well, we're sitting here today and the majority of us are saying this is the biggest problem that we hear. So maybe it's time that we look at taking another funding source
Yes, ma'am.
to add to the ditches in this city.
Sure.
Because it is by far the most telephone calls and most comments I get is the ditches. I've got people that their houses are flooding underneath the houses and everything because the ditches are overgrowing. And you can just take problem after problem and it relates back to the ditches. And I know it's not your problem, it's our problem.
Sure.
And we need to get up and decide what we're going to do about a problem.
And I don't know, the mayor may not want me to say this, but the other opportunity is a stormwater drainage utility is another funding source. But I know that's creating a whole nother utility that residents have to pay. You're basically paying a stormwater rate to create a utility that would maintain all the drainage and everything across the city. But that's a whole different thing versus.
Well, I would like for us to look at different things and different sources in different ways.
Members of the board, John, we'll have a policy discussion on storm drain just to educate the board, but members of the board, I would also share, I think just knowing how this works now, being 5 years, we can bring that, and we're definitely I'm not supportive of it, but I don't think you all will have the appetite to increase fees. Because it's additional fee that the residents are paying, so
You'd be like paying a solid waste fee or recycling.
Yeah.
So it would be another fee they would have to pay to support that work.
Because Director Hines is sharing and agreeing that we need to be doing a rate study, which we already are. That rate study is an increase. To have a stormwater drain, that's an increase.
Yeah. That's why I said the mayor probably wouldn't like it.
And I guess I'm being very clear. I'm not disagreeing with any of this discussion. I think we all know, and what we've seen since Tuesday, there's a strong economic sentiment across this nation. And so if we're talking about increasing rates, I don't know how happy people will be. That's all I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with anything because we all get the calls. But we will look at it, and we'll have a policy discussion on it to make certain everyone is educated on it and what it would look like. We definitely will. And Director Hines, we'll have another conversation with the city attorney to see if we can do a sole source. I want to make sure what we've been told, but if we can, honestly, what I would love to do, we can go back and get the same person we did back in 2018 and just start it over. So.
I just think we've got a person to press on.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the erosion, what we're seeing in several places in Southwest and some out in West Little Rock, where the ditches are eroding until it's taken the fences and the property of residents. Whose problem is that?
That is a property owner's responsibility to defend their property against that erosion. Because in most of those instances, it's an easement, and those property lines actually extend out into the middle of the drainage. So their property line's actually out there beyond their fence. So it's their property. It just has an easement on it. So they need to maintain and defend their property from those erosion forces. In most cases, I'm not going to say that's every case, but in most cases, that's the scenario that's occurring there. It's that property owner's responsibility to maintain their property from eroding.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I think we'll now go to, oh, you had? Director Warwick?
Thank you. I want to weigh in on the ditches as well, but I do want to clarify one thing. If there's a ditch and it does not fall in an easement, then you're not gonna take care of that,
That's correct.
okay?
That's private property.
That's
we-
private property,
We have no right to be, that'd be like me coming to your house and going up in the middle of your front yard and deciding we wanted to
Yeah,
do something without
right, okay.
having the right
so
to do it.
I just wanted to clarify that because a lot of calls that I get are ditches that run through property, but there's no easement there. And
Correct.
so the city's not gonna do anything about it.
Yes, ma'am.
I've seen, and I've noticed a huge delay in from the time we report something until something gets completed. But people are saying they have ditches and they have this vegetation that's growing up and it's growing over their fences and it's pulling their fences over and stuff like that. So it is a big topic in the community. So whatever we can do to make a difference on that, I think is important. So I'm glad we're gonna look into it. We talked about, solid waste pickup, and, it would be these extra pickups. And last year or year before last, you did a study and you said, instead of charging for each pickup, we can do 4 pickups.
The bulky item.
Yeah, you're talking bulky item, on-call bulky item
Right,
collections.
bulky item
Yes.
pick, is that still panning out? I didn't see any numbers in here to make me home in on that. Is
Yes,
it-
right now that, originally when we did that rate and changed that back in 18, 19, whatever that exact
Yeah.
date was, everyone only received one
Right,
on-call pickup, and then they had to
Right.
pay after that.
but then we
We
moved
changed
it
that to where
4.
you get 4 in a year,
Right,
included with your just regular
Right.
monthly fees.
right,
And so I don't know that we've seen anyone abusing that. That hasn't been an issue for us as far
That's
as,
still not
there hasn't been a
cost-
huge
it's
spike
not
or a huge change in the
It's not a
amount.
cost issue for us
No,
that's
ma'am.
impacting any of these budgets we're looking at. That still is good. Okay.
yes.
The rate study, we all did look at the rate study, but it was during the pandemic era. And, people were hurting, a lot of issues going on, and so we passed at that point in trying to do something about the rate study. I do think that we need to look at that. Under your 2024 accomplishments, you said you completed pavement evaluation of entire city street network.
Yes, ma'am.
What are you doing with that information?
That information, we're going to be using it as we move forward. At this point, with the bond funding, the capital program, that we have money set aside that we can use to do street resurfacing. We plan on using that pavement assessment to help us determine which streets would be the best to use that funding to resurface streets
Okay,
with.
that's what I was hopeful. You sort of categorize, this is bad, this is good.
And if the mayor wants, we can actually come in now that I think we're comfortable enough with the system that we have to do a presentation to the board to sort of show you what it is and the whole
Yeah.
city where you can utilize it and see what's going on.
I think we need to look at that.
Sure, we'll get that scheduled as well.
Okay, that may be, I may be letting you off easy. That may be all my questions that I had. I do want to weigh in on the right-of-way mowing, in Southwest where I've seen the work that's being done by the group. I think they're doing a good job. I don't know if it's a part of their responsibility, but I think it should be to pick up litter before they mow.
They are supposed to do that.
I've noticed in some places they do a good job with it, in other places not so good. So, but I do think that is a worthwhile investment in our community, and you're still looking at just collector streets, right?
Collector arterials type
Yeah,
streets, yes, ma'am.
collector arterials, okay. Yeah, they just kind of go in like buzz saws, and they're there and they're gone. And I think the timing is right. Or is it 5 times a year they come?
Up to 5 times, yes, depending
Yeah.
on when it's necessary.
And so they start out, I think, early enough and they end late enough, so the right-of-ways last, until spring again. So I think that's worthwhile. That's much better than killing grass, which we used to.
I agree, yes.
We used to kill grass everywhere.
Or we'd kill grass that we shouldn't have killed, I think
That's
was
exactly
part
right.
of the problem with that.
That's happened to me. And you have to leave it to the individual to determine, well, is somebody maintaining this or are they not maintaining it? And that didn't work. So I think that's a good plan. And I'm sorry, some parts of the city don't agree with it, but I do. I think it's good. But if they can pay attention to their litter pickup, I think that's key.
And I agree, we're gonna have to make sure our folks are doing a better job of monitoring exactly what they're doing, both before and after they go to a certain
Yeah.
section to clean.
Yeah, I agree. But in my area, for the most part, I think they're doing a good job. Lights along University, street lights. Do we own those street lights on University?
Which section of University?
The
I don't believe we own any of the lights on University, especially if you're talking about at the northern end where you get
ones
closer to
that are in the
Cantrell.
medians.
Those are all Entergy lights.
There are a lot of them that have been torn down in bad shape, laying in the median. Can we do, I thought maybe it was city lights. Can we do something to,
Sure, we are constantly communicating with Entergy about getting those repaired, replaced, removed, especially when they're still laying down in the medians. And sometimes our crews will even go out and remove them if they're hazardous in the medians.
I think there's some around, University and Colonel Glenn and, 65th Street? 6700 block, Joan says.
Okay, all
I
right.
just know driving through there, I see them occasionally through there. Street sweeping. I think I've seen a street sweeper in the Alexander Road area one time. And I think there's a mandate of how many times you're supposed to sweep the streets.
We sweep curb and guttered streets, so if your streets
Okay.
don't have curb and gutter, we probably are not gonna be sweeping them.
Yeah, okay, that's what I wanted to clarify, yeah.
Because they really don't, the way those operate, if it's
It's
not
not
a hard
helpful,
edge,
yeah.
vertical edge, it's hard for them to actually get the debris cleaned up.
Yeah, I've seen them one time. So, I noticed that was one of your performance measurements, so I wanted to get clarification on that. But if you've got open ditches, that's not gonna happen, and that's not part of your mandate from
That's correct.
ADQ?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I get a lot of questions about street sweeping, and I thought that was the right answer, but, okay, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Director Peck?
I'll be so quick. John, thank you. I kind of feel sorry for you. But you are the nuts and bolts, so there. Very quickly, interestingly, 35 minutes ago, I got a text from a constituent about a drainage ditch, and guess where? Walnut Valley. I'm not gonna beat this horse to death, but not we, the city, but a contractor did the work. I said it to you because they thought it doesn't really look any different. There's still a big root ball. Hadn't been any flooding because we had a drought this summer. And then I've sent the pictures before and after, and there's really very little difference. So he's asked me then, hey, could you check on the update on the drainage ditch on Walnut Valley again? So we'll talk about that later, but we have got to follow through and check on some of this work because I'm not an expert, but I've driven out there and there's still debris. I know the goal is not to make it beautiful, but to drain it, it's not gonna drain if we have a big rain. I mean, there's a gigantic root ball stuck there. So whoever did the work didn't do a good job.
Okay.
Okay. Just thought it was interesting, I just got it.
Director Hines?
Thank you, John.
Yeah, one quick question, same question I asked this year Warren budget. Either John or Nick, can you get me the total and unrestricted street fund reserve balance? And then also I want to know, and that's what our current balance is. And then I want to know what the change is, what the net change is from 2023, since we just got the CAFR posted, and currently. Is there, what the net change is, either positive or negative? And I would hope I can get that before next year.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Make sure that he gets that before the end of next week.
We all would like copies.
Sure thing.
Yes.
Director Computers? Hold on. Director Computers?
Quick question. what is our policy on maintenance people who blow leaves into the street and leave them?
It's against code, but you got to catch them in the act, and then you're going to write them a notice and go through the whole, just like a code enforcement notice. You have 7 days to clean it up, and then you get a citation. If you don't do it, then it goes to environmental court. So it's more of a, if we catch somebody do it, we're saying, hey, you cannot do that. You need to clean that up, and you can't put it into the gutter where it goes into the storm system and clogs everything up. It's more of a verbal reminder that you shouldn't do that versus any kind of enforcement action.
That's what I was afraid of.
Yes, sir. And you have to actually catch them doing it as well. I stop all the time and tell people to stop doing it.
I just stopped before, I said, what are you gonna do with these? They said, you're gonna pick these up, and I went, pick them up.
That's why I blew them in the street, so they go away. Yeah.
All right, thank you. We'll go to fire.
Thank you.
Again, department directors, we're going straight into personnel and budget requests. No need to discuss accomplishments. Board members have had this for about a week. Go right ahead, Chief.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mayor, to members of the board. Good morning. I'd like to, first of all, introduce my staff that's here with me today. I have both of my two assistant chiefs, Michael Doan, Philip Durham, and then third party with us is another member of my administrative staff, Octavia Ashford. She's the administrative manager. Before I get started, I would like to say thank you again for your support of the Little Rock Fire Department. Just to give you a big thank you to the $1.5 million in 2022 you guys shared with us for facility improvements. ARPA funds, we were able to purchase what you'll see is we have a new 3-4-story burn building that'll be delivered to our training facility the 1st of January, around the first part of January of next year. Our firefighters are excited about that. Also, Director Lewis, if you've ever, in your ward, Station 15 on Canis at John Barrow, we're replacing the pavement out front that was seriously deteriorating just due to its location and time. And so we did a lot of painting in all of our stations and some small cosmetic stuff with that 1.5. So I'm just saying, on behalf of the department, thank you. That did do us some good, even though we have a lot more needs as it relates to the conditions of our facilities. If we would go into our personnel model, we have a complement of 445 personnel, 7 of those personnel being civilian employees. The other 438 is uniform personnel. At this current moment, we have 0 vacancies. Sometimes we're very fortunate we don't struggle with retention and recruitment, even though the recruitment numbers are down since COVID. And I think that's a national issue as it bleeds over from what we see in police. It's now in all sectors of public service, even military. The numbers are down. So, but we're pretty fortunate. We're an attractive department. Most of our recruit classes have at least 3 to 5 individuals from neighboring or other fire services throughout the state and country, whereas we lose 0 people. I say 0 people to other fire departments. We have, I want to believe, an environment and a culture that attracts and keep our people here, thanks to you as well as this administration. If we would move then, Nick, to our budget request items. The first one being, I can't see those numbers or that information up there, but I got my document here. I hope I'm saying the same thing as you guys are seeing. The first item that I wanted to request was 2 additional positions for battalion chief so that we can put another battalion into our supervisory realm. We've been operating with 4 battalion chiefs throughout the city since the 1960s when there were only 200 and some firefighters. This is the supervisory role. When the administration goes home, these are the individuals that supervise our fire personnel. We now have, on a daily basis, over 130 firefighters operating across this 124 square miles of coverage for the city. And so whenever we have large-scale events, let's just say an apartment fire, we're pulling two of those particular supervisors to mitigate that emergency, while those other two have the entire city. And I think that's a safety risk for our personnel as well as members of the community. If we can get this one additional position, which would be equal to 3 people, but we're only asking for 2 because we have what we call a swing chief now. We would absorb into that number that will add, for security reasons, safety reasons, a very operable measure for our firefighters operating. And then secondly, our self-contained breathing apparatuses. Those are, for those who may not be aware, those are nothing more than those air cylinders that the firefighters utilize along with the mask when they're entering into those toxic environments, fire scenes. The ones we currently have, they are reached their shelf life by the end of 2026. We have attempted to seek grant funding. We have, with Amanda Jones being a great resource for us in these attempts, we have been declined, but we will continue to do that. But I think we need to do this in a staggering formation because these are so expensive. If we could replace half this coming year and then the other half January of 2026, I think it would be very efficient because it's very expensive to replace all of them at one time. And then the third item that we're looking to do is, because some of our facilities are beyond repairs, Director Miller, I think you mentioned before, the station number 6, that's the one directly across from the State Fair. We know that there are hundreds and thousands of visitors come to our city on an annual basis. They visit that particular State Fair, and that particular facility is not the best looking building to say it's a city facility. For our guests, our tourists, and our residents, it has cost us quite a bit of monies in repairs. The foundation has issues, the plumbing has issues, the walls are starting to separate on that building. I just think that's a challenge for us to have our people operating, living, and working out of that particular building. We have dumped quite a bit of money into there. We have the land right there to be able to take that down and replace it in place. It serves that community. That station has a great relationship with the Central High Neighborhood Association, the school, and I think at one point you guys may have driven by there and saw the paint peeling from that door. Well, we used some of those ARPA funds to replace that paint to try to continue to make it look decent. But I think it's in our best interest to take that down and replace it. Number 6, that's station number 6. And then I moved to station 25, Director Hines. He's been very instrumental in helping us get to the point that we are now as it relates to that station. When we were given the monies previously for that station, we've incurred quite a few costs, as some of you may know, as far as infrastructure around that area, around Highway 10 and Morgan Cemetery Road. And then it's just the amount of space and cost has gone up since then. So if we can add some additional funding to that, that neighborhood, that community, that sector of the city deserves that station. We're looking forward to serving that station. Our firefighters are constantly asking me on a daily or weekly basis, where are we, how are we coming along? So we want to see that. That's one of my 2025 goals, is to see us break ground and then partner with that neighborhood out there. And then lastly, we're looking at funding for mental health. Each year, we're dealing with 2 to 5 firefighters that are charged with some type of alcohol-related, drug-related incidents where we have to issue some type of corrective measures, offer them additional resources in addressing it, so that, because we believe our employees are our most valuable asset, and we want to give back to them as much as they give back to this community. We're pretty excited. We've teamed along with Chief Helton and I with protein, with a physical therapy. We're utilizing some of our space out at our training facility, and we invite all of you out. I'll send the invitations out to you. We're gonna have a soft opening for what we built out there, where our people can receive that immediate physical therapy to be able to get back to work. We have quite a bit of people off on a monthly basis with some type of injury. What we have addressed with that is we've been able to provide them with that immediate physical therapy, but we want to add to those services, not only physical therapy, but mental therapy as well. That's all I have.
Director Hines?
Yeah, Chief, on the mental health therapist, and I guess this may be a question, is there not a way for us to tap into our healthcare coverage for EAP assistance where that's concerned?
Director Hines, great question. We have that in place. Some of our personnel, from our perspective, as well as I've talked with police, there's a lack of confidence as far as the service that they're receiving there. This here particular group is adding an extension.
Specialize
in mental health.
Mental health for first responders. Okay.
Correct. Yes,
All right,
sir.
That's all I need to know. Thanks.
Director Wyatt?
Thank you. Chief, how are we doing on turnouts per the firefighters? Our objective was 2 turnouts per each firefighter. Have we got to that level?
Yes, we have. The only group that does not have their second set is those individuals who were just hired on.
Okay.
They go through that first year with one set, and then by the time they're off probation, they have that second set issue.
How many fire marshals do we have? I mean, I looked through here to see a title for fire marshal. Are they a specific code? Like,
I'm not that good, but I could tell you how many fire marshals we have.
Okay.
We have 8.
8? Okay, I'm really impressed with their abilities and what they can do. There was my page 167 talks about objective measures of progress, and it talks about estimated total property value, amount affected by fires, and for 2024 through August, it shows 74,106,600, but it seems to be a huge jump from 2022, 2023. Are we just now able to capture that details? How do we come up with such a big number for 2024?
As you can see, what we were trying, what's the goal here is when there's a property involved with fire, usually we could go to the assessors. What's the cost of the what's the value of the property versus what do we deem as the loss associated with that property?
So why was 2024 so big, 74 million, as compared to 13 million and 9 million in the other 2 years?
I think that's, that 2024 number is still part of the estimate number. It's not the actual number because of the year has not been completed.
Okay, I thought maybe that was through August, but it's, you think it's an estimated number?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. I think that was it.
Director
Thank
Miller?
you for all you do. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the update on station number 6. What is the station number at Roosevelt and Springer?
13.
13. Is there any long-term plan? I know it's not in 2025, but
Yes, sir.
any kind of plan for that station?
My goal is, there's 2 other stations that I'd like to see taken down and replaced, just as I'm presenting with Station 6, and that's either Station 13 and Station 15 on Canis and John Barrow.
Thanks. That's all there.
All right, we'll go to police. I've already sent a note to Chief Helton to bring him and his team. They should be walking down here pretty soon.
One other thing, Mayor, I would like to give the board an update on Station 9 and temporary Station 9. Chief Durham is our project manager on that.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for this time. Update on temporary Station 9, first of all. Due to some setbacks, we had a couple weeks setback on some things. Contractors are now able to get inside the building, and they're working with the plumbing, getting things significant movement in that project right now. The sprung temporary structure was delivered this week, and so it's moving according to plan. Sprung is a temporary membrane structure that will be used to house our fire apparatus under.
We're ready, yeah.
Right now, the contractor's looking at February for a completion date for the entire project. Again, initially it was January, but we ran into a couple little hiccups that pushed that timeline back. I have a meeting with them next week, and they update every week and a half when we meet.
If you wouldn't mind keeping me in the loop.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
Walnut Valley's excited.
Yes, ma'am.
Curious.
On the subject of Station 9, we have the completed set of drawings as well as the program from the architect. We've been working with finance and with Tabitha Cook to prepare the bid documents to go out public. Right now, we just got them back, so we're going to review them and look through them. Based on the recommendation of the architect, he recommended waiting to December 2nd to push those out public. That lets all the contractors ample time before Christmas. We don't have Thanksgiving to look at the documents. We'll have an on-site pre-bid meeting and have that hopefully that bid closed by January and ready to award the contract, and hopefully with a groundbreaking around February sometime, if everything lines up correctly.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll now transition to police. Chief Eldon, we're just go straight into budget and personnel. Board members have already had your accomplishments. So.
Sounds great. All right, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Webb, members of the board, city manager, thanks for having us in this morning to talk about our budget request for 2025. You'll see this morning I got my team with me, Assistant Chief Dyer, Assistant Chief Miller, Assistant Chief Ellison, as well as my Administrative Services Manager, Ms. Sanders. So talking about, I'll start out with our staffing, currently where we're at right now. Total authorized strength of 595 personnel, that's sworn personnel. Currently sitting at 527, 68 vacancies. We will start a recruit class on December 15th, I believe, with 14 officers for that class, as well as we've got 2 reinstatements and a lateral officer that will be beginning as well, so 17, which should take my vacancies down to 51 as we end the year. And then our plan is to start another recruit class, smaller class of anywhere from 12 to 15 come February of next year. I know my goals was to run 2 classes per year, but in order for us to stay up with attrition, we're going to have to hit 3, and so we're looking at maybe small class, and a big class. So big class in August of next year is what the plan will be, hopefully to get us where we want staffing-wise. My goal is to be down around, you're always going to run anywhere from 10 to 20 vacancies if we get to fully staffed, but my goal is to get to fully staffed, but if we can get it down around 20 vacancies or less, I'll be completely happy and pleased with that and allow us to be able to do a lot of things. Overall staffing for the department, as you can see on our chart there, I think we're slotted for an overall strength department-wide of 705 personnel. That includes my sworn, non-sworn personnel. Currently have 20 non-sworn positions vacant within the department. We've maintained that for quite a while now. Very difficult to hire some of our clerical work, some of the other things for, you know, the pay is always an issue, hours are always an issue, so we have reallocated, moved some things around to compensate for those duties, but at some point we're going to have to look at trying to get those positions filled, compensation up, and I know there's a compensation study, so we'll see how that rolls. And but I commend the team for what we do and how we've been able to tackle some of the challenges. With that being said, where it reflects into us, where I'm very pleased, and we talk about the city's overall crime rate, which I think is very important for the board to see where we're at now to where we were this time last year. As of today, we have an overall crime rate that's down 5%. Violent crime is down 5% in our city. Homicides, really noted, down 36% in our city today. Property crime down 4%. Burglaries, which normally plagues our city quite a bit when we talk about property crimes, is only up 1.3%. And we're heading into the last month and a half of the year. That is a huge success on the part of our department, what we've been able to do, how we've been able to deal with some of the challenges, not only talking about staffing and budget things of that, we've been able to adjust, keep our personnel motivated to tackle some of these issues. And when you look at it from a 5-year standpoint, because I hate going year to year, I look at the 5-year average because that's the telltale of really the health of your city. Our violent crime is down across all 3 divisions, patrol divisions, down 5 years in violent crime. And it goes anywhere from 5%, 4%, 3%, depending on what division you're in. So we're doing very well, but we got to keep up that momentum. And when we talk about how we're going to do that, some of our successes, the Real-Time Crime Center, we believe in some of the advances we've done in technology that the department has been very blessed to receive. A lot of that come out of our ARPA funding that we received to stand up the Real-Time Crime Center. A lot of our software and some of the technology advances that we've made have been great. But one thing about technology, it's an investment. And it's an investment that we hope the board will continue to invest in the police department as we tackle some of the challenges that we see evolving when we talk criminal activity and how we look at preventing crime and keeping our communities safe. So that's one of our first line items. And if you look in our budget request, continuing to operate with software. You know, every piece of technology has software fees, yearly fees that come with it. How do we continue to maintain that and then build on top of those programs that we have? So we've asked for an additional funding measure there to help stand it up. Obviously, disappointed in the sales tax, but just as been said, the people have spoken and very much respect that deal. But so we got to go back to the drawing board and figure out how do we continue those processes. The next line item that we have is our hand tool account. Obviously, equipment, uniforms, and things of that nature continue to get very expensive. And we talk about adding classes in the future. We got to be prepared in order to make sure we have uniform and equipment for those personnel. Computers. There's a line item in there for next year's budget to increase our computer intake. We have a lot of outdated computers in the department. Obviously, being the largest department in the city, we're still operating with some platforms that are, when the IT department comes over there, so they're very amazed that we still even have these operating, or they're even operating at all. So we need about an extra additional $33,000 to push out some of the older equipment that we have and update it to the new stuff. And then, again, uniform equipment, hand tools, some of the other things. The hand tool part of it's our new tasers. That's a yearly expense that we have to incur that has gone up with some of the new technology that we've got with our taser devices. So, again, all our ask is things that we definitely have to have. We looked at our needs and our wants. We've been able to table some of our wants and look for other measures, whether it be through grant opportunities or partnerships with other entities to serve these. But the needs are what we've identified going forward for this next year's budget request. I want to also I'm not going to dive off because I know Director Hinton had already talked about cars, but cars obviously is not in my budget, but very much a need for our department. We were very blessed to get 107 cars the previous year from the board, and grateful for us. First time we'd had that many cars in my entire time I've been here with the police department. But it was it helped, but not enough. We've got an aging fleet. I'm sure Director Hinton spoke on that. We've got several cars that probably should not be driving on the roadway right now. So we're hoping that we can come to some kind of agreement to get that updated and get towards the goals that Director Hinton has for the city's fleet and specifically for not only PD, but fire, code enforcement as well. So with that, I'll just kind of open it up for questions because that's kind of what that I look forward to and not really boring you with stuff you've already read. So.
And also, just before I go to Vice Mayor Webb, members of the board, we also are in active negotiations with the Little Rock Fraternal Order Police and the Black Police Officers Union. So, Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Scott, and thank you, Chief Helton.
Yes, ma'am.
Our residents, and I really appreciate the work that you've done to get those crime rates down. Very much appreciate it.
Been a great team effort.
And this may be a question, when I was looking at the district court numbers in the traffic division, so it may be a question for them, but I want to ask you as well. I was looking at some old numbers, and like in 2019, there were 29,000 violations entered for traffic court. And I think we know that speeding and reckless driving and things like that are a huge problem that I do get a lot of complaints are. And in 2024, we've entered 17,645 violations. Can you address that difference, or do you want me to wait and ask that at district court?
No, I can address it to some degree on our end, and then I think obviously district court will probably have some input on that as well. For us, no different. You got 68 vacancies right now. Some of those are, we have to transition some of our specialty units. A good example, some of you remember when we had our START unit back in the day, that was our Special Traffic Accident Reduction Team. They focus solely on speeding issues, DWI enforcement, as well as with our motorcycle unit. Well, as staffing, attrition kind of really got you, and then we had to look at moving units around, and that was a unit that ultimately got sacrificed in having to move people. Our motorcycle unit, where we used to have 8 motorcycles, we're down to 5 right now. So those things impact you when you look at putting things out there to address speeding complaints. And then you're basically running call to call to call. 911 never stops ringing. So one thing we're hoping with some of these additional, if we can get additional cars, and as personnel's coming in, we feel fairly confident after the first part of the year, we'll be able to stand our START unit back up and things. So that's something that we're looking forward to doing. That's one of my priorities, is to get that implemented, because I get calls from all you all about speeding, and I get emails regularly about that. And then I think that's a missed opportunity for us, not just go out here and write tickets, but to slow traffic down. That is a contributor to accidents, making people feel safe. It's a quality of life issue in our neighborhood. So we've really got to focus some of our efforts to address that. We've had a heavy focus on trying to deal with violent crime, because that was a top priority, will remain a top priority. But we need to look at, okay, how can we maintain that and then fluctuate over here to figure out how we're going to start dealing with these other minor quality of life issues that really have an impact within our neighborhoods.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Director Miller?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Chief. Thanks for your report. Excuse me for being lazy, for not looking at all the personnel information that you've given us in this budget. But certainly, of course, the people have spoken about sales tax, and we respect that.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, in your budget here with personnel, how many social workers do we have? I know we had this vision of these mental health response teams. No, that's not going to happen, but where are we with regard to mental health response teams, community-oriented police, and just community engagement with our youth? Tell me a little bit about what's in this budget for this.
Yeah, great question. So our budget in this particular part doesn't really that, but we have our internal regular budget that we'll continue to focus on. Plus, we have a grant that we partnered with UAMS to help fund some social workers. So we currently have 3 social workers with the department. We're looking to hire an additional one. We still have our 4 officers assigned to our community response team. We will look to add to that after the first of the year. But that group is still doing amazing work. Just, thinking about yesterday, we had a gentleman in our lobby for probably hour and a half, 2 hours yesterday, that the team, social worker and officer, spent an incredible amount of time with, getting this individual taken care of, and got him placed where we needed to get him placed. So they're still doing the great work and effort there. Hopefully we can continue to add to that. We'll evaluate it, and my plan is to expand it because it has been overly successful, been very beneficial to our community. The partnerships we've formed with other stakeholders within the community and building those has been great. As far as our community resource officers, my plan was with the passing of the sales tax, we were going to beef that up pretty heavy. Might delay us, but we're going to add a couple to each patrol division after the first of the year, as we've gotten some groups come out when the class that's currently in of 22. They'll graduate late January. Once they get out, we're going to add some more community resource officers in. Not as many as I wanted to, but we'll just start building our house piece by piece and getting that out there, getting more of those officers, networking with the community, riding the bikes, being out there, being highly visible.
All right. Thanks.
Director Wyrick?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for all you do.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
The numbers that you gave us earlier were really awesome. Obviously, we'd like for them still to be less, but I've been to a couple of the quarterly meetings with the majors out in Southwest and then Northwest, and they've talked about the traffic stops that they're doing, and they're saying that is what's creating the low numbers of crime in the areas. Is that the way you feel about it, and do we have intentions to continue that?
So our mechanisms that we put in place to address the violent crime is a very multifaceted approach. Traffic stops with high visibility is one, because when you put visibility out, it is a deterrent. We've had a lot of partnerships with our Fed agencies, state partners, so working on various initiatives through them. And then I think also our CROs have been really good, getting back out. We've got 3 phenomenal CROs that do a lot of great work, and really are trying to get that concept back going again. And I think our engagement with the community has probably picked up a little bit more than what it had been previously. So, and I think that's coming out of COVID. People are starting to come back out. People are getting engaged. We saw with our National Night Out program, hugely successful. And I think that we're going to see that continue to grow. So I think the community got a little tired of dealing with issues. So the community wanted to be involved, which that's another a critical piece of the puzzle, because we can't do it alone. So we're seeing community involvement come back in. You know, Director Doucette with community programs, communication pieces, it's been very beneficial in us, not just the PD, but as us as a city and as departments throughout the city partnering to try to address some of these issues. So Project Impact was another one that all city departments came and we hit, 12th Street area and then down on the lower end off 27th, targeting some of these problems. And that initiative will continue into next year, and we'll move that to other parts of the city. So I think that's where we've seen the benefit. And definitely from my perspective, we're not going to let up. The Real-Time Crime Center has been a huge piece of that crime initiative, trying to drive some numbers down. It's been wildly successful. I mean, right now, our goal at the end of this year was to have a total of 4,000 cameras either registered or integrated into the system. We're at 4,100 right now. And I know we've got a couple more partners that are getting ready to come online. So it's huge. And I think the mayor and his team with the Eyes on the Rock initiative and the chamber, but we still have a lot more work to do. I fully believe there's more that our community can be doing, and as well as us, and I expect that net to grow even more.
I think it was this last weekend that I was seeing a bunch of Nextdoor posts about caravanning. And somebody posted the list on 911 of the calls that you got. And I think there were 7, 8, or 9 reports in different places on caravanning.
Caravanning's
last
it's an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a challenge. I know you might not find it shock, but a lot of our counterparts in other cities are dealing with it too. And I think it's probably a direct relation. The weather's gotten a little bit nicer, a little bit cooler. It's not as hot outside. Right in the middle of football season, so a lot of people are out. When they get done, they do out. So, but we've got plans in place to look at that. Obviously, the holidays are coming up. We've got details in place to address the holiday season. So, when these things pop up, we'll acclimate and remove our reposition and pivot our resources to address them. As you know, we just went through the state fair. We had the PGA tournament here, election. We had Razorback game prior. So we were very busy from August all the way through the end of October. So we're now, got a breather for a couple weeks, but we're going to amp up and get ready for the final run here in the end of the year.
I know that's a challenge, but I was just really shocked and amazed that we had 7, 8, or 9 locations that they were all working at one time. And I'm envisioning, your hats going, bills going both ways. Which way did they go? So.
It is a lot of work, but this is where the Crime Center comes in handy. Those cameras help. Our app that we have, our community members send info to the app. So that engagement is very helpful, but we're stretched in. We try to tackle them the best we can, but we still have 911 calls. We got to respond to service as well.
Right.
But the groups that do these activities they're very crafty with how they put their messages out and how they move around.
I don't know how you're going to do it.
So, but we are definitely dealing with it. I know it's frustrating for our communities. Where I live, yes, they're congregated up out there, and I hear the burnouts and I hear the squealing, and then it gets quiet. And I know Chief Ellison will tell you he hears it over by his neighborhood quite often. So it is a challenge, but we're going to actively work to get it addressed.
The community is just really dismayed with, how their hours are disrupted, and it's scary. It's scary to them as well.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree. So
Okay.
completely agree.
Okay, appreciate you. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Director Campiris?
Thank you for all you do.
Appreciate it,
You
sir.
did a great job. A couple of things. I know Jay Cheshire's been helping with the cameras. What more can we do to get more cameras?
Well, some of that funding in our budget request will help with that. But I think just continue to educate. I mean, Director Miller mentioned earlier just how we educate the public. We got to continue to educate individuals on what this does. We give tours quite often to people that just are curious. curious about what the operation is, because I think the perception is we're spying. We're really not. So I think once we have that opportunity to bring people in and educate them what it's about, what we're trying to do, it really opens up some eyes to folks because they really have no idea. And we offer that for those who want to come in and look and push the message out, from the board members. You all have had an opportunity to see the crime center. You all have had an opportunity to see what's going on, encouraging the community to get engaged. Show up to the neighborhood meetings, show up to these things. If you have your own neighborhood associated meetings, invite us out, have us there to communicate and talk about some of these initiatives, some of the things we're doing, because that education piece is so real. And unfortunately, a lot of people only get their information what the news wants to put out there, what they see on various social media platforms, which is not always the full story. I always say there's always two sides to every story, so get the complete picture before we form our opinions on things.
Well, I would encourage you to look at our PR people to see, and yours, on what we can do on bringing people in, having the public have a day that they can come look at it. Because I agree with you, people think we're doing something nefarious when we're not. And that's it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
The second one, and something I've talked to you about and Leland about, is what we're going to do, what legally that Tom can tell us we can do about the homeless situation, and how we address it, especially in the parks, where we do have rules on what we can do. So how do we address that, and moving now and then moving forward?
I agree. We work very closely with Mr. DeSalvo and his team. Our CRT guys do, as well as our community resource officers. But it's an ever-growing challenge to try to address this matter. And yeah, there's going to have to be more conversation from a legality standpoint. I think our property owners sometimes are, guilty of allowing some of these things to go on. One thing about, I think, Little Rock and the state of Arkansas, we're a very giving state and community. We see a person in need, we help. And that's what's so great about our community. But sometimes you help, then it's almost like what I call, feeding stray cats. You feed them, they keep coming back, and they bring a buddy next time, and then it grows and grows. But where sometimes now my generosity has created a problem, and we don't know what to do. Our resources are strained. So I think we got to have further communication on how we move these things along, and bring in more people to the table. Whether it's various other community organizations on how we can all address this, and probably going to have to be something that, with the legislative body getting ready to convene early in January, might be something that the state has to take up as well.
Well, there was a recent group that came in from 2 different cities, and that we met on this issue before, but we might want to, after the first of the year, in one of our meetings, have all the stakeholders here and have a community discussion about this, because it's just, everybody wants to do the right thing, but everybody's trying to do the right thing individually, and that doesn't work.
And, I think another issue, because I heard this mentioned, and I'm not going to mention who it came from, but I was at an event with some other, chiefs and other officials from other cities from across our community and our state, that one of the things they say, we always tell them to go to Little Rock because y'all have all the services. So I think that's what we get a lot of, and we do. We have a lot of services, a lot of providers here, and I think they tell them to go up there because you'll get services. We don't have them in our city, so go there. So I think we get the byproduct of that, which when it inundates at one time, it creates a huge strain on everybody, and everybody's left trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to deal with it? And most of the time it's called the police, and we're the ones having to go out there and try to deal with it every challenge. And some of it not necessarily a law enforcement related function, but we realize from our perspective in the chief's office that it's on our doorstep. It's not going nowhere. It's not going away. We're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. So those are conversations that I welcome, and any meeting like that would be definitely appreciated.
Okay.
Director Lewis, then Director Hines.
I just want to start by saying thank you.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
I appreciate hearing you mention about the concentrated efforts for the community policing. And I'm just, especially in regards to Ward 6, and I think about the John Barrow neighborhood over by Boyle Park, I can't help but think about the enhancements that are taking place. We just got Boyle working on Kiwanis, we got Canis. So can we please make a targeted effort to have more police through the area? And I'm not saying hound the residents, because I'm having all these outside conversations, but just to show themselves, police friendly, increase the community relationships and all of that, so we can keep our enhancements positive. I want to keep the positive atmosphere that we're building, so I just want to say thanks, and we can keep this in the budget so it won't be an issue, but looking forward to getting more personnel added.
No, I thank you, and I think it goes back to what I said earlier. When the neighborhood groups meet, or the association, invite us. Have somebody there, because when you do that, one, we're explaining what's going on, but we're also building that relationship, and you're getting to know us, we get to know you. That's where you get that relationship, and which is huge, and it's important, because when there is problems, not necessarily might be a 911, but I can pick up and call Officer so-and-so, I can do this, and they're gonna tell you, hey, this is what we can do, or you know the major at Northwest Division, and you have that relationship, and that's critical, and I think it's huge for our community.
Thank you.
Director Hines?
Thank you, Chief. I want to recognize our Assistant Chief sitting in here too. Glad to have you guys.
I can let one of them talk if you want to.
What's that?
I said, I can let one of them talk if you want to. Especially this guy right here, so.
Y'all buy me lunch? I'll keep you off my. I appreciate, I was looking through your objective measures, and I wanted to let you talk just a little bit about our clearance rates, and it looks like we've been improving. And kind of what impact does that have? I know in homicides it's huge. When our clearance rate's not high, it tends to be a cascading effect, but it looks like our clearance rates are going up better on violent crimes and than our property crimes. So can you elaborate a little bit on that and how that's important to further reducing, you know?
I think a lot of that is our communication efforts, not only internally, but having a much better communication efforts with our partners as well. Here locally, between all the interagency cooperation has been great. Obviously, our technology pieces are in helping to improve that clearance rate. We have a great relationship with the prosecutor's office now. So things have just kind of aligned up, and I think our detectives have really taken some internal looks at how we're doing and how we're conducting business and how we're handling cases and how do we speed up those, you know, getting these cases wrapped up. Where's all the evidence? I mean, our crime scene unit does a phenomenal job. I don't know if our community or the board realizes how good our crime scene unit really is. We're the only full-time operational crime scene unit in the state of Arkansas. We have a great group of individuals here. We've lost some because a lot of times people will come here to get the training and go to other places that offer more money. But we do a great job here. What we're doing with our NIBINs, which is our National Incident Ballistic Network that we do with the shell casings, has been phenomenal as well. So I think just our advances and being proactive and trying to how we're addressing issues that pop up, and we're doing it very quickly. And there's no doubt, I mean, the Crime Center has been a huge component of that as well. So it's just, it's been good. And then we're getting new detectives in there. The training that we're sending them off to is some of the latest and greatest, where traditionally in the past, the funding hasn't been there to maybe do that. Now we're able to do things of that nature. So that's kind of what has played off to that. And our clearance rate on our homicides is above the national average right now. National average floats around 51%. I think we're floating 62, 63% right now, and that will likely go up even more because we've got some cases that we're working diligently to try to get solved. So we're doing good work.
Excellent. One other question. How do you get, because I've had conversations with Major Prater. We've had the issue with caravan crop up again in the Coles parking lot, and then they migrate, I think, over to Easter Seals. Easter Seals is an easier bear to tackle. We know they're board members, and I think we can work with them to get them to secure their lot. And when I talked to Major Prater, I said, you can go out and contact the local store manager, but they're not going to have the gumption. Mm-hmm. We need to be reaching out, especially with these corporate entities, reaching out to their corporate security people, because it's an issue for them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so seeing what we can do to help them, I've worked with, but do we have anybody within the department tasked to just run down that specific stuff, or is that left up to our patrol division commanders to delegate that? And it might help to get somebody, you know, sometimes when a city attorney sends a letter to a corporate entity saying, hey, you got a problem, and if
that
you
helps.
don't fix it, we'll fix it for you. So kind of a more collaborative effect, because that seems to be a commonality, is the lack of control of private property. And I know if the property owners will post it and and file a report with you guys. You guys can enforce activity on private property, but without that, you guys, unless you're getting a complaint, really your hands are tied to be proactive in that approach.
Yeah, very challenging. I'll use the example, and Director Webb will definitely know what I'm about to talk about. So, great example was Park Plaza. Park Plaza, prior to their new ownership, was having quite a bit of issues with caravanners and burnouts and things like that all over that property. Once new ownership took place, I know Vice Mayor Webb had a lot of conversations with them. I had conversations with them. We finally were able to sit down, meet, talk about some things, and then look at it from a prevention standpoint, from an environmental design concept. So what they did, they went in and put the parking barricade or bumpers in the lot, took away their entire deal. They ended up increasing their security at nighttime. They were locking up some of their entrances. Those things help out tremendously. Easter Seals has the ability to lock up their lot. Why they don't, I don't know why they don't do it at night, but they're there.
I've got some good friends on their board, so they've had some other things happen on their parking lot that weren't approved. A certain caravan that was permitted by us that they weren't aware was originating on their lot. So I think we're going to have some further conversations with them.
And in Kohl's, it's a big lot. They don't have anything that blocks the entrances. Half the lighting now is on the lot. They don't have any exterior cameras. So there's some things they need to do from a business standpoint. And I think we rely on Major Prater. Obviously, Northwest they told him to make contact. We have a formal agreement in writing from them saying they don't want people loitering, but they need to have some signage posted. And there's some things that they can do from an environmental standpoint, but I don't know if they're willing to invest to get that done.
Yeah, they're not in exactly the greatest financial shape these days, too,
But we try to meet with property owners for those that are having those problems, go down, talk, things that we can relay that they can do to help us out from an enforcement standpoint to try to take action. And if they're limiting us, then our hands are kind of tied from a legality standpoint. And when if you get 500 cars gathered up on a lot and I only have 2 officers available to go down there and deal with it, very difficult for 2 officers to try to wrangle in, traffic stop, 500 cars leaving out. At that point, we're just trying to get them off the lot and get them out of there as safe as we can. And then they go to another location, so.
Right.
It's a challenge. It's a huge challenge.
I know. So, thank you.
Thank you, members of the board. We'll now go to Parks and Recreation. Leland?
Thank y'all.
And Leland, just so you're aware, you don't have to go through your accomplishments, just go straight to budget and personnel.
I have a handout, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, good morning. I did a quick presentation here. Hopefully there's enough for the center table here too, Nate. So what this represents is the 5 top priorities that I have requested for the board to review. So I'm a big visual person, and so I thought I've presented on some of these in the past, and so I thought having some pictures and some layouts to help explain the request for this year would be helpful. So just if you turn to the 3rd page, it's the request overview. Just quickly reviewing our top 5 requests. Our biggest item today is our senior facility. As everyone here is aware, I'm assuming we did receive some funding for a senior facility, and we're planning to start construction next year. And so this is going into the facility staffing of that and requesting for funds for that. And the second biggest item is our Resman Golf Course. There's course improvement requests in there, which I'll get into, and concessions and merchandise, which I've covered here before. If you turn to the next page, it's for the seniors. So currently, we have a facility that we have designed to add 5,000 square feet to. And we have plans that are completed, that were completed by Polk Stanley. And we'll be bidding those before the end of the year. So then we'll know our final price for cost for construction. The main features of that facility will be a therapeutic pool, exercise room, and renovation of the existing roughly 15,000 square feet. So we'll have a brand new senior facility that, if everything comes online, will be opening sometime next year in the fall. So to help explain our seniors, I think it'd be helpful if I went into a little bit of what we have currently today existing. We have different locations within our existing community centers that we have staffing. We have one, if you turn to the page that says Seniors Existing Operations on the left, it gives you a breakdown of what we have existing today. We have one full-time position, and then we have part-time supervisors at each location. We do have one standalone facility, which is at East Little Rock, and it's currently very active. So we're moving into the center at University, so that operation is on the right. And currently we have one full-time position there for a facility supervisor and one office assistant, and two part-time. So the budget of that facility is $316. So we'll be using that budget and those personnel and combining all that into one new senior operation. That is where, if you turn to the next page, Seniors Proposed, this is actually describing our full layout for a new senior facility and operations. You can see where I've labeled on top of the positions, on top of the blue box, it says existing position. So those are the positions that I just referenced at our existing facilities. And we're currently in the process working with HR to reclassify those as needed. Some of them are empty positions, and so we have the opportunity to reclassify them and hire new. It's actually worked out pretty well. The ones that don't say existing are the ones that I'm requesting funding for. Starting at the top would be a coordinator. We believe that we really need to have somebody over senior programming for the whole city for our existing operations and our new facility. It's that big of a role that we want to have a coordinator of all things seniors. And you can see below that, office assistant, a senior affairs liaison. So on the left, that's an existing position. That'd still manage all of our community center, senior operations, and then the right is all new with some new senior programmers, maintenance worker, and aquatic staff. So if we don't have a way to budget for some of these positions for 2025, we'll have a hard time opening a new senior facility. There is a lot of discussion here in the fact that we won't be opening until later in the year, so we might not have to fully fund them. Might have more of a soft opening. We might not have to have all the programmers. There's a lot of different ways to work through this, but this is our start, and this is my initial full request. I imagine that you would have some questions about hours of operation, membership fees, and items like that. So we've reviewed and compared ourselves greatly with the Patrick Henry Hayes facility in North Little Rock. They currently charge $45 a year for their memberships. So we have a proposed rate. We're just working out. This is still, very open for discussion, but a $30 yearly rate for our seniors and a $5 daily rate. Our facility operation proposal, as you can see there, is 7 to 7, Monday through Friday, and then 8 to 12. Very similar in a way to our community centers, but again, we probably need a lot more community input and your input on what we think is best there. Our membership options there that it says current, That's for our existing, so we do charge a yearly rate for $15 if you are a senior and you want to go to West Central and utilize the senior programming there. I guess I could stop there, just keep going. Okay. So the next area is golf, Resman Golf. The largest item here, the first item is contracts at $500,000. This is to work on the Arkansas River bank for stabilization of the hole 13. This is our key hole that looks downtown, and there are some images if you turn to the next pages that actually show you why we're losing our riverbank. I mean, it's just open topsoil, sand. So this started, we realized this was a problem in 2018, and we've been tracking it ever since. We lost the biggest chunk in 2019 when we had a major flood. Since then, it is relatively slow to probably losing roughly a foot a year. So if you look on the next page, it shows 2018 to 2024. The 2024 I got off of Google, and what you can tell is that there's only about 10 feet left of actual surrounding around the green. So if we were, happen to maybe have a larger flow in the river this winter, I would expect that we'd probably lose another couple of feet. At a certain point, we're going to lose our green. When we lose our green, or chunks of our green, we won't have an 18-hole golf course anymore. So I have construction plans that are ready. The mayor and I talked about bidding the project. I'm working with the consultants to bid it. The challenge with bidding it is we have to have a whole lot of different permits. There's the core permit, a lot of different floodplain, floodway permits, and we're working through some of those, and some of those cost a little bit of money to navigate through. That was the largest request there. On that contract, you will see that there's an ongoing $100,000. We receive a ton of complaints about Resman Golf Course in terms of the maintenance. If you look in maintenance in the budget for Resman Golf, under contracts, there's zero budgeted. Under land maintenance, there's $76,000. So we do have roughly a $500,000 operation there for maintenance. But for us to go and actually buy any chemicals or buy anything, we have $76,000. It's just a challenge. We just can't quite squeeze anything else out of this golf course. It's still making great rounds, still having great revenue. The concession and merchandising, I don't know if I really need to go back through all that. That's an ongoing area where we're upside down. We're already spent our budget. We're already in the hole, roughly $15,000 in each of those areas, because we still have to operate and have food preparation, but we have drastically cut back. If you go into our pro shop, the merchandise is very lacking, and that money not only cuts into our overall budget for golf. So anyway, that's the biggest request that I have for Little Rock Parks and Recreation. I appreciate your time this morning.
Director Hines?
Thanks. Leland, on the reconstruction, am I imagining things? I thought we had set some money aside for this over the last several years.
So we haven't actually set any money aside. A couple years back, you gave us $50,000 to do the design work. Okay. And we went and contracted with McClellan, and we're still contracted with them to help us with some of the permitting, but I'm using some additional monies for some additional permitting that we found.
Okay. And then, and I think we've had this discussion, the whole deal with the concession food and the merchandise, you guys are running shortfalls because that money gets swept back into the general fund. It's not kept in the enterprise fund.
That's correct. We've discussed it a few times, and we've made up for it last year.
Because, and I guess the other question is is it a net profit in the concession and merchandise? Are we making money there?
You're making revenue, yes, we're covering our costs, yes. I don't have the exact, full layout of where all that revenue actually goes. I mean, I do have a report on
So
that, but
we're back to operating concession ourselves because we used to contract that concession out, right? And I guess we didn't have the last, at some point, I thought I remembered that was an RFQ to have somebody basically lease it from us to operate it as a business.
that I recall, no, it easily could have been some time ago. We used to have a larger concession program. We used to have bigger staff. We used to be able to concession out of all of our ball fields and all that. All that's been cut, and we have one person that does our concession with part-time help at the golf course.
All right, and I guess, you know, in an issue like that, we should be, I guess we'd have to look at the volumes and the prices we're charging to be able to, seems to me those should be able to turn, at least turn a profit and do better and break even, but with anything with concession food and merchandise in a golf store, if you don't have it, you can't sell it. And so
correct.
maybe we need a new strategy to either look at maybe putting an RFQ on the street to see if somebody wants to come in and pay us the lease fee and operate it, and we get out of that side of the business. I mean, if it's generating money that we're not making,
Right.
that we're not, and I get it, you like having the revenue, but if we're not making a profit on it, it's not really a
So,
benefit.
let me be clear. It's, we have in there $50,000 for merchandise. I buy $50,000 worth of product, and we sell, and we make a profit on that. And then that goes to the general fund. I don't
See, the problem with that that's an enterprise fund, Nick. That money should be kept in there to buy more inventory and continue to turn the inventory. So if that's a change we need to make at the board level, we need to know how to make it. Because as I recall, the zoo keeps all of the profits. Does their revenue flow back to the general fund as well from the sales in their gift shop and all that? Or I think they outsource their gift shop, I don't know.
Okay. They did outsource their operations for that activity for like the cafe and stuff like that at the zoo. Both the zoo and golf course are in the general fund. They used to be enterprise funds many years ago, but because of subsidies from the general fund to those funds, they were moved back into the general fund because we were showing, I don't know what the numbers are, I'd have to go back and look at the prior ACFRs.
But you understand the conundrum, we're in there. It's an enterprise fund, but we're sweeping everything back. It's almost like we should let them go the whole year and then have an account settlement at the end of the year where
That's great.
The profit should be kept in that enterprise fund to help operate the golf course and reduce the subsidy, I guess is what I'm saying. It should be, the profits made there, then you solve your issue with cost of goods and being able to have inventory. Because if we don't get off this merry-go-round, can't keep doing the same thing we're doing, expecting a different result. And so this continues, I continue to hear this year after year when we're having budgeting. So that's something for us to discuss, and we'll
Yeah,
We'll
I mean,
figure it out.
in merchandising, you have to imagine whenever this budget of $46,000 was established, a golf shirt costs $20, and today it costs $40. So, and golf balls cost more and
right.
everything
No,
else.
I get it, believe me, I
Okay.
know. I worked in retail. All right, thanks, Lou, appreciate it.
Director Miller?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Leland. Let me ask you, when I look at the personnel for 2025 and the request, one of the things I want to ask you about is youth programming, like at Dunbar on Saturdays. I mean, I really want to see if the vision is to try to have more youth programming going on there, say on a Saturday. Because sometimes it's closed. Also, I guess years ago, there was very robust basketball tournaments that were going on summers. I don't see that anymore. I mean, just more interaction with youth programming. And when I look at this, I want to make sure I'm reading this right. So when I see youth sports coordinator, I guess, that position's zero. We don't have one. Am I reading this right?
So there's a couple different youth coordinators. I don't have that exact copy that you're looking at in front of me. We have a youth coordinator for recreation. We have rec programmers at Dunbar. We have three at Dunbar, and Dunbar is the heaviest location in terms of what we still have left. We had them all filled just a month ago, and then the new person that filled the third position left, was only here for 7 weeks. It's a long story. We're working to refill that position. The position that was lacking over the last year that was really large is the rec program coordinator over all of our community centers. That was filled by an individual. That individual went out on FMLA and was out for over a year. And we have just finalized that whole challenge and have hired a new person to fill that role. So now that person, pushes our facility supervisors to have basketball and our youth programming stronger at our community centers.
So is that the vision for 2025, to have these programs?
Yes.
To have the centers open up more? I mean, because we do so much with community programs. We have all these groups who are asking for money. We got the facilities at the city. I mean, we got the basketball courts. We got the tennis courts. We have all that all those capital facilities. I just don't see them being used as much. And so for 2025, I really want to see that to be more robust. And if there's something we need to be approving on that or looking at that, please let us know. The other thing is that there are a number of community gardens in Ward 1. Dunbar Community Garden, Crump Garden, Oak Forest Garden. Is there personnel in this budget to interact with that? And how much of that is the city working with them on, or how much is that the responsibilities of the people that are running those community gardens? They seem to want the city to be more involved. Is there positions on this budget that maybe I'm overlooking that interact with those groups and those community gardens?
Let me start with your first, back to the community centers and what we need and what we can do there just to help. So with the ARPA funding, which you're aware of $2 million, we're making major improvements. A facility like Dunbar, we did a design for renovations, and we looked at the renovations. There's something like $2 million worth of cost of need there to be upgraded. So I'm not saying that that's an excuse or that's why we're not facilitating, but I was there yesterday, and we have a trash can in the gym collecting water from the roof. Those don't stop our programming, but it definitely doesn't help. We were able to use some of the funding. We've replaced part of the roof where it was leaking the worst, and we're still working on the gym. And so we're using those ARPA funds to do that. But we have to continue. The point is continue to reinvest in these facilities. Stevens is getting a makeover. So is Southwest. But the costs there are killing us in terms of our life cycle. All the air conditioners at Dunbar are 20 years old. So as soon as they go out, we have a downfall, we have an issue, we don't have any money to fix that. Vandalism has been a huge issue too. We just lost our air conditioner at Stevens to vandalism. That was a $150,000 cost that we ate out of our ARPA contingency fund. We did go to insurance, we did go to the police. The insurance actually wrote us a check for zero because once you depreciate and take out the $100,000 deductible we have. But anyway, those are some of those challenges at our facilities. In terms of our communities, our community gardens, so historically, from my understanding, a community garden is supposed to be just like what you hear, is a garden for the community. If we go out there and actually develop and build the garden and run the garden and do all the things, it's not a community garden anymore. It's our garden. So there's a breaking point there of how do we help make sure the garden works, such as like Oak Forest, where we've facilitated construction of a new building there. We keep the lights on, we replace lights, we do tree trimming, we do the maintenance on a lot of the grounds in terms of, we don't always cut all the grass. A lot of that is from the operations there. But you see what I'm saying? There's a lot of that we take on. We tried, there was a great gentleman at Dunbar, Chris Ryman. We tried to go through a whole process of building him up into a full-time position. That all backfired. He eventually went over to the Museum of Fine Arts, is my understanding. And so we've had that job position out, a senior maintenance position, with the understanding that it would focus on community gardens. And we haven't had anybody apply that has that desire to do that. We still work on these gardens, but we do not have a one-off personnel that is 100% focused on that.
Is that position in the 2025 budget?
It's still, yes. So it's, all we're doing is taking maintenance positions that we're not able to fill because of lack of respondents and all the different challenges. And we changed the description of it slightly to say community garden liaison. So, yes.
So is there money in the budget for 2025 to stop the leaks at Dunbar so you won't have to have the waste basket collecting?
We do have money in terms of our ARPA funds.
Not ARPA funds.
Yeah.
General funds.
No, so in terms of our ongoing maintenance and operations of our community centers, they're very lacking in contract dollars on their own. We used to have maintenance staff that actually would clean the facilities and do work at the facility. All that went away in a budget cut long time ago. So we're challenged in that area. We do have a construction staff that can help. Building services helps with those operations as well. But yes, I mean, if another air conditioner goes out for $20,000 at Dunbar, we're taking from some of those funds that you gave us last year for maintenance.
So you're saying we don't have enough money in the budget to address the current needs that we have?
If you want to say the current needs at Dunbar are $2 million, no, we do not have that kind of funding. We're still fully operational, but I mean, the carpet needs to be replaced. The whole facility needs to be painted. The roofs need to be replaced. The air conditioners need to be replaced. We just remodeled renovated the tennis courts there. They get a lot of use. So we were able to get some great improvements there. We put new lights there. We resurfaced the courts and new windscreens. So that's a great facility. But we have to be able to continue to do that. Those were ARPA and bond funds that we utilized. And so it's kind of like the parking lot, right? You're familiar with the parking lot. We didn't have the striping and all that, so we striped it. That comes out of our maintenance dollars. We don't actually have that heavy of an operation maintenance account for our community centers standalone.
Do we need it?
Obviously, yes, yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Leland, thank you for your responsiveness and that picture of the golf course, that erosion, that really helps. And I know you and I both get a lot of emails about it. And
yes.
Thank you for including this picture. One thing to Director Miller, there are a couple of groups that have gotten over $1 million, or one that's gotten over $1 million in USDA funds. I don't know what will happen to USDA grants come 2025, but there's a lot of money for community gardens in USDA money right now
That's great.
in the city of Little Rock. My two questions are, in 2019, we had 129 people in your budget, and so now I think it's what, 107, something like that? But my question is, and you've got a lot of vacancies too, are most of those, that reduction, and I remember when we cut your budget, are we losing out on services, or have we replaced those activities with outsourcing, like some of the mowing things, and part-time people? That's my first question.
Okay, yeah, if I can go by that first one. So there's actually more staff. What you're looking at there is just parks. And then you have to remember we have golf and Jim Daly. So they're separate then from the overall account there. We do have some vacancies, but we roughly always have roughly 20 vacancies across the board. It's just what happens, retirements, all kinds of different things that happen with staff. And then we're constantly working to replace them. Some of the biggest things that we lost when we did a reduction in force is the biggest thing was we shut down Interstate Park. We had 4 staff out there that managed the whole complex, and those 4 staff would also go around and manage all of our ball fields throughout the city and help do maintenance on all of our recreation, playground. If the playground needed some fluffing in terms of the surfacing and stuff like that, they were really good to be able to utilize for that. So when I came on board as the director, all that was gone. And so we're using our landscape crew, which is out of right by Interstate. We have a division there. We used to have greenhouses, and we used to grow plants. We used to do a lot more things. That landscape crew is essentially turned into a landscape/ball field crew. And it's not working well because the individuals that signed up for that job signed up to be a landscape person, not a person to go drag a ball field every day, because that's what you have to do. It's challenging. It's challenging for us to find a contractor to maintain a ball field. It's easy to find a contractor, or easier to find a contractor to mow a park. And yes, we mow roughly half of our parks through contract labor. And with the additional funds that you gave us last year, we use those funds to hire contractors to do all kinds of stuff in terms of trash and pickup and debris, all kinds of tree work that I'm assuming you've seen across the city. So that's our biggest miss. What we're trying to do, and the reason that I had that on my previous budget request, but it didn't make my top 5 here this year. We're actually going to try to just utilize some of our staff that in our maintenance and that we can't fill, and change those and reclassify them to ball field. Is that exactly what we need to be doing? No. I mean, it'd be better if we had, a crew. We get a lot of complaints about Interstate. They're not all about the general maintenance of it. It's really because we built it in 1970 and we haven't done anything to it since then, except for we repaved the main road for $500,000 this last year, which I'm very thankful for. But we have a lot of challenges there.
Thank you. And the last one, a lot of us were at Jim Daly recently with the grand reopening of the pool. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
People were happy about that. And I know that usage of Jim Daly is way down this year because of, or I trust because of that. And since it's opened, are you seeing it start to climb again?
Yes, it went, some of the participation or the members did go away. We did pay, if you recall, we paid for a lot of those members to go to Euler, to the swimming pool, and we ate a significant cost on that cost there. But our challenge at Jim Daly continues. I have a request to use some more bond funds there. But if you recall when we were there, I don't know if you looked at the ceiling in the indoor pool, the ceiling was supposed to be renovated as part of that project. When they tore into the ceiling, they realized that majority of the inner structure was completely rotted. And so we have a cost estimate of roughly $500,000 to $1 million to replace that roof. Our infrastructure like that just continues because we're not, upgrading it or renovating it on a timeline that we should be doing. Our outdoor pool, the little pool that was for kids, we don't have any money for that. So we're looking at demolition of that just so that we don't have that eyesore there in terms of seeing that. There's also a need for fitness equipment there. Our turn on our fitness equipment needs to be more regular on a regular basis, but that's another expense. We've discussed that, Emily and I have discussed that quite a bit, and we have some plans to do some of that, but those are things that we're competing against other facilities. I do believe that there's a strong group. I mean, you saw them when we opened it, and those will continue to be there, and I think we have a unique but we need to invest in Jim Daly, and I know that's challenging when we're talking about all these different budgets, but, that's what we need to do for Jim Daly.
And I see that one of the goals for next year is to do more outreach with the neighborhood associations in Ward 3. And so do we need to get the equipment before we do the outreach, or get the equipment and do the outreach at the same time?
Well, it depends on the funding, right, obviously, but, I think it's working. So we have an advisory group now that you're aware of, and I would like to go back to them and say, what's the most important? The most important thing to me is the roof, and it's a timing matter. If we have the bond funds to do it, we have to do it to where we shut down the indoor pool again while we can have the outdoor pool open and replace the roof and then flip it all back. It's a unique timing situation. If we can't accomplish that this summer, we would do it in '26. And then based on that, we would fall back to new equipment and upgrades. So.
Thank you.
Director Compeers?
I want to ask you two or three questions, then I've got to run out and go to another meeting. Going on what Lance said, it is, when we closed 2 golf courses, and I voted for it and I agree with it completely, the thought was that we were going to take all those resources and put them in Repsamen. So not today, but I need to know ideas about what it truly takes maintenance-wise to bring that course back up to what it was before, not today, and what we need ongoing. The second thing is that I don't think there's an option on the $500,000. That hole falls in, there is no revenue, nothing happens, and you have a 17-hole golf course with 9 holes that no one ever plays. So this is, I mean, this doesn't look to me like it's something we need to discuss in the budget. It's kind of like the swimming pool with the heaters. It's something we need to say, next week we need to decide on doing this and get it done, because the water's going to come and it's going to wash out. And it's the same thing behind City Hall. We're losing cottonwood trees back there every day back there. We're going to have to look at that bank too. So just, that's not your problem. That's,
And keep going, Director Compeers.
Are you referring to the Arkansas River Trail?
yeah.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse. And
I mean, since I play down there all the time, the area between the trail and the edge of the river, trees fall in every day, and we're going to lose that whole thing. And we're going to also lose the place where at the Junction Bridge, on that outflow track where the erosion has come when we did that. There's a huge sinkhole there that if we don't address, that whole thing's going to fall in.
but the substation you're aware of, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a major sewer line there.
That's what I'm
We're
talking about.
we're discussing it with the Corps, and I've asked staff to reach back out to
But those
wastewater.
are 3 areas on the river.
Yes.
Secondly, going back to what Virgil was saying, and again, this is not you can answer this, and people, my competitors will tell me, but if we don't have community centers, in my opinion, that work on Saturdays, then we're missing an opportunity for the kids in those areas, and we're missing an opportunity to have prevention of crime in our city. So if you don't have someplace to go, and you don't have organized activities, especially on Saturday when we're in the school year, then we're losing that opportunity. So you can tell me later if it's in our budget, but I'm going to push for that strongly. So I've got to run.
And Director Compeers, before you have to run, do you have anything, and I'm sure you'll just bend my ear or bend Emily's ear on, we're going to push through and then go to lunch, go to Office of Executive Administration. You got anything?
No, I've got to do an interview.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Leland.
Okay, thank you.
Members of the board, we'll do the Office of Executive Administration and go to lunch. If you'll go to,
I'll handle the personnel, and Emily will handle the one budget request, I believe. Members of the board, if you'll look at the personnel,
It's the last.
page 229 in the small book. I don't know what it is in your big book. It's in this. Everyone, the book that was on here when you came into the room, just over 229. Very end. Do you got it, Director Hines? I got it. Yeah, Director. Yeah. Everybody got it? Yeah, here. Just give that to her. Give her Director Phillips. You got it. I asked him, he said he didn't have any questions, and he would get to us. Do you got some questions? Yeah. That's why I asked him. Emily emailed that to you all last Friday.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ashley sent it out, last Friday. It was emailed on Friday.
We'll just start. Members of the board, as you are seeing, this document was emailed to you last Friday by Ashley. If you will look at page 229, you do not see any increase in the Office of Executive Administration whatsoever, just like there was no increase in 24. From that standpoint, for those sometimes who may have forgotten certain things because titles were changed over the years since 2020, I want to make certain the Chief Education Officer of this city board approved that position in 2020. The Chief Equity Officer of this city board approved that position in 21. Nothing else has changed over the years with that. Just for memory, if you, the senior advisor position used to be Blake Griffin and Griffin Coop, just to give you all a little memory from that standpoint. The Chief Data Officer used to be named Performance Innovation, which was Miss Melissa at that time. The Creative Economy Special Project person used to be Scott Carter, that's now Melissa Mitchell. From that standpoint, clearly you're aware that the city manager position is vacant at this time. We have an acting city manager. Clearly, we have a vacant city clerk position. We have an acting city clerk. This document was pulled from June. Every document that you have before you today was pulled, that personnel model, in June of 2024. We'll move from any questions on personnel, because Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I'm not quite organized now since I'm looking at two different books, but as you have just gone through the changes with job titles and stuff like that, it's made it very confusing to some of us to figure out exactly what's going on. And one of the things that I would like to see is I would like to see a list of positions with the name of the person and the salary. And I would like to see that from 2023 and 2024. And I would like to see the part-time people included in that. So that's kind of my first question on that. And then I have a couple of other things that I'll ask you separately.
Sure, and just to answer that question, credit to City Director Peck. All of the positions and salaries are on the open data wallet. Again, I want to reiterate, we can get you the names. No position has changed in 23. No position changed in 24. And each time this city board has approved the budget of those individuals, but we will get that information to you, but the salaries are already posted on the open data wallet. From that standpoint, and from that standpoint, we have two, I believe, part-time individuals. Teron Cooney is a part-time individual. Nia Payton is another part-time individual. That is, to my knowledge, that may be the only person that's part-time. Is that correct, Emily?
I think there are a couple of intern positions
Interns,
too,
yeah, that we always do during the summer youth employment.
But we'll check.
But yeah, Teron Cooney, who does a lot of our constituent relations. I can answer that question to you now. Teron Cooney is our part-time, does a lot of community relations stuff for the city. She's part-time. Nia Payton, she's part-time. We do have some intern positions that we do fund, and many times half of that's paid through a grant through Heartland Forward and things of that nature. So we only have 2 part-time positions.
I believe there might be TV communications. I don't have the full
Yeah, so,
part-time list. And maybe some 311 personnel.
yeah,
too
3-1,
that are
most of the part-times
we'll
in
get the
3-1.
list to you.
Yeah.
If you could get that, and also either Emily, you or Nick with the versus the 2023.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, Vice Mayor Webb, no one's been added. It's on the budget. No one's been added since '23. The only new, again, I want to reiterate and answer that question for you, Vice Mayor Webb. The only new positions in the Office of Executive Administration have been, over the years, since I was elected in 2018, came into office in 2019, this city board voted to add the Chief Education Officer position. This city board voted to add the Chief Equity Officer position. And with any organization, people come, people go. We have changed those titles. Those titles have been the same since 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. But Scott Carter left. His title was Creative Economy. We hired Melissa Mitchell. Michael Drake left. His position at that point in time was the Chief Services Officer position. We changed that to Policy Advisor. James Owen, who's right there, took on that position. The Senior Advisor had a different title. That position was Blake Griffin at one time and Griffin Coop at another time. Phyllis Dickerson was the Chief of Staff for 12 years. Kendra Pruitt is Chief of Staff. We've had a number of different communications directors, and as you know that from that standpoint, Aaron Sadler. So, but we can get that, all that's online, and we'll get that to you.
And I guess I'm also
Yes, ma'am.
not sure how regularly it's updated
Yes, ma'am. It's updated every January.
online.
Yes, ma'am.
Once a year, I think.
Once.
So in other words, it's not up to date exactly with the salaries or anything?
No, but we can get, if you have a particular person, we can tell you that right now.
No, I just,
Yeah.
I mean, and before we had the city manager, we had the office, and it's just making it difficult.
That changed in 2020, Vice Mayor Webb. We have this, again, I say this, we have this memory every year during this time. Nothing's changed that you haven't approved since 2019.
To get a lot more, I just would like
We
to
can
see
get,
some more information.
yeah, we can get that to you, but I encourage everyone, we do have the open data wallet that you all approved as well, and it's updated every January from that standpoint. And also, I want to remind members of the city board, each year that you all have given someone, given this city a raise, that increases someone's raises as well from that standpoint. We're completely transparent, so there's someone's name, we can literally get that right now that we want to discuss.
Thank you.
Director Adcock?
Yes, I also want copies of it. Emily, and if you don't understand, I do not use the portal or any of that, so I need everything in writing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. And Emily, if you could, since we're here today, let's get that printed out all today. Yeah. I mean, it's very quick. I mean, it's not. That'd be great. Director Miller?
Thanks, Mayor. Of course, I have less memory than most of you since I got on this board in 2021. But when did the city manager's position or city manager's department become part of the Office of Executive Administration?
We changed that in 2020.
Okay.
We unified because, as you know, the mayor is the chief elected officer, chief executive officer, and we merged the offices so it wouldn't be folks coming to one person or two people and getting different answers. It's all was unified to the public. That changed in 2020.
Okay. So that's, of course, before my time, but appreciate that. And also for 2025, I think we really need to have a sense of urgency about getting the city manager's position filled.
Yes, sir.
I think we've been respectful with the time that we've taken with this. But, again, I think it's time that we get that, and I think we need to move quickly on that. Hopefully in the first quarter or so, we'll be able to see some, some names or some positions that we, as a city board, have to look at, because it's your decision to bring us people, and then our decision to approve those folks.
Yes, sir.
And so we need that. And I would also think, I don't know how this works in the budget-wise, but again, an experienced city manager coming into this situation, I'm a little concerned about our hybrid model. It's not your deal. It was approved by the citizens of Little Rock in 2007. But there's a lot of confusion sometimes about who we talk to. Of course, you have to address that with 2020 and putting all this under the Office of Executive Administration. I understand. I can get that. I'd see that. I'm just saying, I think it's going to be challenging if we're going to get an experienced city manager, get a city manager that's going to report structurally that way, because most experienced city managers, I don't think they report this way. Now, there may be some models in some other cities. I guess what I'm saying, I probably need a tutorial outside of the budget about this structure that we put together in 2007. Quite frankly, that I voted for as a citizen. But again, we need to get this position filled, and I think it needs to be urgent.
And thank you for that encouragement. I do want to share with members of the city board. Clearly, we were focused on a number of different things. When you have a 20-year leader like Bruce T. Moore, we did want to let some time rest for a lot of the grieving. Clearly, we had the focus on the sales tax. You're right, there has to be some intense natures. My goal, again, is to have someone presented to you by the end of this year. So I want to make that commitment publicly. From that standpoint, you're right. There are other cities that have the hybrid form that we have, and it operates well. I don't think there's any confusion, because when there's something wrong in the city, good, bad, or indifferent, they call the mayor. So I don't know where that confusion may be. Maybe some confusion here at the city board. I don't know that, but I think you all understand the process, and quite frankly, many of you all that have been here quite so long, that sometimes you don't even need to call myself or Emily, because you know where to track it down. Like a Director Adcock, she knows a lot of things where to track down from that standpoint. I say that to say things are operating just fine. The people spoke then in 2007. They spoke in 2018. They spoke in 2022 on how we operate from that standpoint. But I do commit that we're going to always maintain and adhere to all the law states. We need to have a chief city manager / chief administrative officer appointed by me, subject to your confirmation. And we will have that person or persons before you to vet by the end of this year. Yes, ma'am. As Director Miller has been encouraging to get that done, I want to make sure you know I hear you. Yeah. All right. We can go to lunch.
Did you want to go to our request, though?
Oh, your request. Yeah, the one request, the $50,000
Yeah,
request.
we have one $50,000 request, and it comes from our emergency management personnel. It's for an annual maintenance agreement with our current siren vendor for our outdoor warning sirens, and again, that's a $50,000 cost. So that's the one request. It's for our outdoor. You know, when we know it's noon on Wednesday. Oh, sirens, yes.
I heard fire engine.
Sorry. Sirens.
Well, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
All right, lunchtime.
And what time do you want to start back up so I can make sure we have them here? It's only 12:23, and we had a 30-minute break for lunch, so we could just have community, I mean, come back at 1?
Don't talk about that.